Welcome to The Calm Scientist. If you're here, it probably means you're ready to slow down, relax, and drift gently into the night with a head full of curiosity. Tonight, we're going to unravel one of the most peculiar and fascinating ideas to emerge from the intersection of quantum physics and human consciousness: the notion that manifestation, that ancient idea of bringing desired outcomes into being through focused intention, might actually work backwards through time, and that this reversal might be precisely what makes it so powerful. I do hope this exploration of quantum retrocausality and consciousness won't be terribly inconvenient for your plans to drift off to sleep. Though I must warn you, once you start contemplating how your future might be reaching back through time to influence your present, well, it's the kind of bedtime story only quantum physicists and philosophers could write, where cause and effect become as tangled as your sheets might be by morning. Before we begin our journey through these temporal mysteries, if you're enjoying this gentle stroll through the looking glass of quantum reality, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave the video a like and subscribed. It really helps this cozy little channel drift along through the algorithmic cosmos. And if you're feeling conversational, do let me know in the comments where in the world you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I find it wonderfully appropriate that we're discussing time flowing backwards, while our global audience experiences time zones flowing forward, creating our little temporal tapestry of sleepy minds stretching from dawn in Tokyo to dusk in London, all connected by our shared wonder at how reality might actually work. This video is here to relax you, to fascinate you just enough to make your thoughts soft and quantum, probabilistic rather than deterministic. You won't need to remember every equation or experiment. Just float with me as we explore how the universe might be far stranger and more responsive to consciousness than we ever imagined. And just before we begin, this video is for relaxation and education. It is not medical advice or a substitute for professional care. Always look after yourself and sleep well. Let's start with the basics, or what we think are the basics, because in the quantum world, even the concept of basics becomes delightfully uncertain. Manifestation, as most people understand it, seems straightforward enough. You visualize what you want, you focus your intention on it, you act as if it's already true, and somehow, through some mechanism that traditional science has long been skeptical about, you increase the probability of that outcome occurring in your life. It sounds like wishful thinking dressed up in spiritual clothing, but hold that thought gently because, as it turns out, quantum mechanics, that most rigorous and mathematically precise of all sciences, suggests something far stranger might be happening. The story begins not with manifestation coaches or ancient wisdom traditions, though we'll circle back to them later with newfound respect, but with a series of experiments so bizarre that even the physicists who conducted them had trouble believing their results. In the 1960s and 70s, physicists began noticing something peculiar about quantum particles. They seemed to know things they shouldn't know, to respond to measurements that hadn't happened yet, to be influenced by future events in ways that made no sense according to our everyday understanding of cause and effect. Picture, if you will, a single photon, that fundamental packet of light travelling through space. In our classical understanding, this photon has a history that flows from past to present to future, just like everything else in our experience. It was emitted by some source, it travels through space, and eventually it will be absorbed by some detector. Simple, linear, comprehensible. But quantum mechanics had other ideas that would eventually lead us to question whether the future might actually be reaching back to influence the past, and whether consciousness might be the key to understanding this temporal tangle. The first hint of this backwards influence came from something called the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. Now, don't let the technical name discourage you. Think of it as a cosmic game of peek. A, boo, where the universe seems to change its mind about what happened in the past based on what we choose to measure in the future. In this experiment, scientists send photons through a special crystal that splits each photon into two entangled partners. These partner photons are like quantum twins, forever connected no matter how far apart they travel. One photon goes to a detector that records where it lands, creating what we call an interference pattern, those beautiful striped patterns you might remember from high school physics when light passes through two slits. The other photon, the twin, goes on a longer journey, and here's where things get interesting. Depending on what the scientists choose to measure about this second photon, the pattern created by the first photon changes. But here's the truly mind-bending part. The first photon has already bin detected and its pattern recorded before the scientists make their choice about what to measure in the second photon. It's as if the universe is playing a temporal shell game, rearranging the past based on future decisions. The implications are staggering. If a photon's behavior in the past can be influenced by measurements in its future, what does this say about the nature of time itself? What does it say about causality, that bedrock assumption that causes must precede effects? And perhaps most intriguingly for our exploration tonight, what does it say about the role of consciousness in shaping reality? This brings us to the observer effect, perhaps the most famous and misunderstood concept in all of quantum mechanics. You've probably heard some version of it, that observation collapses the wave function, that consciousness determines reality, that the universe doesn't exist until someone looks at it. These popularizations contain a kernel of truth wrapped in layers of misunderstanding, but the actual science is far more interesting than the mystical interpretations suggest. In quantum mechanics, particles don't have definite properties until they're measured. An electron doesn't have a specific location or momentum until something interacts with it in a way that forces it to choose. Before measurement, the electron exists in what we call a superposition, a state of being potentially anywhere and everywhere within a certain probability distribution. It's not that we don't know where the electron is, it's that the electron genuinely doesn't have a definite location until something, an interaction, a measurement, an observation, forces it to pick one. Now, traditionally physicists have been very careful to point out that observation doesn't require a conscious observer. A photon bouncing off an electron counts as an observation. A detector clicking counts as an observation. Any interaction that causes decoherence, that forces the quantum system to choose a definite state, counts as an observation. But there's a minority of physicists, including some very respected ones, who argue that consciousness might play a special role after all. The argument goes something like this, and please, let this wash over you like a gentle wave rather than trying to grasp it all at once. Every physical measurement device, every detector, every photon that bounces off an electron is itself made of quantum particles. If quantum particles exist in superposition until measured, and the measuring devices are made of quantum particles, then the measuring devices themselves should exist in superposition. The detector that's supposed to tell us whether the electron is here or there should itself be in a superposition of having detected the electron here and having detected the electron there. This leads to what's called the measurement problem, an infinite regress where nothing ever actually collapses into a definite state because everything, including the measuring devices, exists in superposition. Unless, some physicists argue, consciousness is somehow special. Perhaps consciousness, whatever that might be, is the only thing that can actually collapse the wave function, that can take the infinite possibilities of the quantum world and crystallize them into the single definite reality we experience. This idea, that consciousness might be fundamental to the process of manifesting reality from quantum possibility, connects beautifully with ancient ideas about manifestation. But quantum mechanics adds a twist that those ancient traditions never imagined. The influence might be working backwards in time. Let's explore this backwards influence more deeply, and to do so we need to talk about something called retrocausality. In ordinary causality, causes precede effects. You push a ball, then it rolls. You plant a seed, then it grows. The past influences the future, but never the other way around. Retrocausality suggests that under certain circumstances, particularly in the quantum realm, the future can influence the past. This isn't science fiction, though it certainly sounds like it. It's a serious proposal by serious physicists trying to make sense of quantum phenomena that seem to violate our intuitions about time. The idea gained significant support from something called the two, state vector formalism of quantum mechanics, developed by Yakira Haronoff and his colleagues. In this formulation, every quantum event is influenced by two state vectors, one evolving forward in time from the past and one evolving backward in time from the future. Imagine reality as a vast tapestry being woven simultaneously from both ends. Threads extend forward from the past, carrying the influence of everything that has happened. But threads also extend backward from the future, carrying the influence of everything that will happen. The present, where these threads meet, is where the pattern of reality crystallizes. Your experience of now is the intersection of past and future influences, a meeting point where what was and what will be negotiate to create what is. This bidirectional flow of influence might explain some of the most puzzling features of quantum mechanics. It might explain quantum entanglement, where particles remain mysteriously connected across vast distances. If the particles are influenced by their shared future as well as their shared past, their correlation makes more sense. It might explain the measurement problem, why quantum systems seem to know what kind of measurement they're about to encounter. If the future measurement is already influencing the present state of the system's behavior becomes less mysterious. But here's where things get really interesting for our exploration of manifestation. If consciousness is indeed what collapses the wave function, and if this collapse can influence the past through retrocausality, then the act of consciously observing or intending a future outcome might literally reach back through time to influence present probabilities. Let me paint you a picture of how this might work. And remember, we're in the realm of theoretical possibilities here, where the boundaries between rigorous science and informed speculation become as quantum and uncertain as the particles we're discussing. Imagine you're at a crossroads in your life, faced with multiple possible futures. In classical thinking, you make a choice, take an action, and that determines which future unfolds. The past influences the present, which influences the future, in a nice, linear, comprehensible chain of causation. But in the quantum manifestation model we're exploring, something far stranger occurs. When you vividly imagine and emotionally invest in a particular future, when you perform what manifestation practitioners call living as if, you might be doing more than just preparing yourself psychologically. You might be creating what physicists would call a future boundary condition, a constraint on the quantum wave function that propagates backward in time. This future boundary condition doesn't determine the past that would violate free will and create paradoxes. Instead, it influences the probabilities of present events. It makes certain present moments more likely and others less likely, always within the bounds of physical possibility, but nudging the quantum dice in favor of outcomes that lead to the imagined future. Think of it like this, and this is a metaphor, not a literal description, but metaphors are sometimes the only way our minds can grasp quantum concepts. Imagine you're in a maze, but this is a quantum maze where the walls are only probably there. The solidity of each wall depends on probability waves that flow both forward from your starting point and backward from the exit. When you strongly intend to reach a particular exit, when you hold that destination clearly in your consciousness, the probability waves from that future exit flow backward through the maze, making certain walls more transparent, more probable to have doors, more likely to offer passage. You still have to walk through the maze, you still have to make choices at each intersection, but the maze itself has become slightly more conducive to your reaching your intended destination. The path hasn't been determined, but it has been influenced by your future, focused intention reaching back to affect present probabilities. This model might explain why certain manifestation techniques seem to work better than others. The most effective techniques, according to both ancient traditions and modern practitioners, involve not just thinking about what you want, but feeling as if it has already happened. You're instructed to generate the emotional state you would have if your desire were already fulfilled, to act with the confidence of someone who knows the outcome is certain, to be grateful for what hasn't yet occurred in linear time. From a quantum retrocausality perspective, these techniques might be effective because they create a stronger future boundary condition. When you emotionally and viscerally experience a future state, you might be creating a more definite collapse of the wave function in that future moment, a clearer signal that can propagate backward through time to influence present probabilities. But let's delve even deeper into this temporal mystery, because the implications extend far beyond personal manifestation into the very nature of time and consciousness themselves. One of the most profound insights from quantum mechanics is that time might not be fundamental. In most of the equations of physics, from Newton's laws to Einstein's relativity to the Schrödinger equation of quantum mechanics, time is reversible. The equations work just as well running backward as forward. This suggests that the arrow of time, our experience of past, present, and future as distinct and ordered, might be emergent rather than fundamental. It might arise from statistical considerations, from the second law of thermodynamics, from the expansion of the universe, or as some physicists suggest, from consciousness itself. Consider the block universe model from Einstein's relativity. In this view, all moments, past, present, and future, exist simultaneously in a 4-dimensional space-time block. What we call now is just our current location in this block, no more special than here is in the 3 dimensions of space. We experience time as flowing because consciousness can only access one slice of the block at a time, like a train that can only see the landscape through its current window even though the entire journey's terrain exists simultaneously. But if consciousness is what creates our experience of temporal flow, and if consciousness can collapse quantum wave functions, then consciousness might have a more profound relationship with time than we've imagined. Perhaps consciousness doesn't just experience time, perhaps it participates in creating time, or at least in selecting which slice of the block universe becomes the experience present. This idea connects to something called the quantum Zeno effect, named after the ancient Greek philosopher's paradox about motion. In the quantum version, frequent observation of a quantum system can freeze its evolution, preventing it from changing states. It's as if consciousness, by observing, can slow or even stop time at the quantum level. Conversely, there's the anti-Zeno effect, where observation can accelerate quantum transitions. By choosing what to observe and how frequently to observe it, consciousness might be able to influence the rate at which quantum systems evolve, effectively controlling the flow of time at the microscopic level. Now, you might be thinking, and quite reasonably, that even if consciousness can influence quantum systems, and even if these influences can work backward in time, we're talking about subatomic particles here. How could this possibly scale up to influence macroscopic events in our daily lives? This is where we need to talk about quantum coherence and the possibility of macroscopic quantum phenomena. Traditionally, physicists believed that quantum effects were confined to the microscopic world because interaction with the environment causes decoherence, destroying quantum superpositions and entanglements. A single particle can exist in superposition, but a cat, to use Schrödinger's famous example, cannot be both alive and dead because the countless particles making up the cat are constantly interacting with their environment, collapsing any superpositions before they can manifest at the macroscopic level. But recent discoveries have challenged this view. We've found quantum coherence in photosynthesis, where plants use quantum effects to efficiently transport energy. We've found it in avian navigation, where birds might use quantum entanglement to sense magnetic fields. We've even found suggestions of it in microtubules, the tiny structures inside neurons that some scientists believe might be the seat of consciousness itself. If biological systems can maintain quantum coherence, even briefly, then the door opens for consciousness to have quantum influences that scale up to the macroscopic world. The brain, with its 100 billion neurons and their 100 trillion connections, might be the most sophisticated quantum computer in the known universe, not in the sense of performing calculations, but in the sense of collapsing quantum possibilities into experienced realities. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have proposed that consciousness emerges from quantum processes in microtubules, those tiny protein structures inside neurons. According to their orchestrated objective reduction theory, consciousness is what happens when quantum superpositions in microtubules reach a certain threshold and spontaneously collapse, creating a moment of conscious experience. If consciousness is fundamentally quantum, then its ability to influence reality through retrocausality becomes less mysterious. The brain wouldn't need to maintain large-scale quantum coherence indefinitely. It would only need brief moments of coherence, perhaps lasting microseconds or milliseconds, during which future, focused intentions could influence present neural states, which could then influence behavior and decision, making in ways that increase the probability of the intended outcome. But there's an even more radical possibility that some physicists are beginning to explore. What if consciousness doesn't just use quantum effects? What if consciousness is the reason quantum effects exist in the first place? This idea, sometimes called consciousness-based interpretations of quantum mechanics, suggests that the strange features of the quantum world, superposition, entanglement, wave function collapse, are not fundamental properties of matter, but are instead properties of the interface between consciousness and matter. In this view, the physical world doesn't exist in a definite state independent of observation, because existence itself is relational. Things exist only in relation to observers, and properties manifest only through interaction with consciousness. The moon, to answer Einstein's famous question, really isn't there when nobody's looking, or rather, It exists in an indefinite, uncollapsed state until consciousness brings it into definite existence through observation. This might sound like solipsism, the idea that only your consciousness exists, but it's actually quite different. In consciousness-based quantum mechanics, all conscious observers participate in the ongoing creation of reality. Each observation, each measurement, each conscious intention adds another thread to the tapestry of existence. Reality emerges from the collective observations of all conscious beings, negotiated through the laws of quantum mechanics. And if reality is continuously being created through consciousness, quantum observation, then manifestation isn't about somehow forcing the universe to comply with your wishes. It's about participating more deliberately in the ongoing creative process that's already happening every moment. When you hold a clear intention, when you collapse the wave function of your own future through focused imagination and emotion, you're adding your thread to the tapestry with greater deliberation and coherence. Let's explore how this might work in practice, moving from the abstract realm of quantum theory to the concrete world of human experience and desire. Imagine you're hoping for a particular job opportunity. In the classical manifestation model, you might visualize getting the job, affirm your worthiness, and take practical steps toward your goal. These are all valuable practices that can increase your chances through well-understood psychological and social mechanisms. But in the quantum manifestation model we're exploring, something additional might be happening. When you vividly imagine yourself in that future job, when you generate the feelings of satisfaction and fulfillment you would experience, you might be creating what we could call a consciousness anchor in that potential future. This anchor doesn't guarantee that future will occur. Nothing in quantum mechanics is certain, only probable, but it might influence the probability distributions of present events in subtle ways. Perhaps it influences your unconscious micro decisions, the ones below the threshold of awareness, making you slightly more likely to check a particular website at just the right moment, or to phrase an email in just the way that resonates with the recipient. Perhaps it influences which neurons fire when you're preparing for an interview, accessing memories and making connections that present you in your best light. Perhaps, and this is the most speculative but also most intriguing possibility, it influences the quantum processes in other people's brains, making them slightly more likely to notice your application, to remember your interview favorably, to feel an inexplicable sense that you're the right fit. Now, I can almost hear the skeptical part of your mind raising objections, and these objections are important and valid. If consciousness could influence reality through quantum retrocausality, wouldn't we see more obvious effects? Why don't people manifest winning lottery numbers or impossible violations of physical laws? These are crucial questions that any serious exploration of quantum manifestation must address. The answer might lie in what we could call the constraint structure of reality. Even in the most consciousness-friendly interpretations of quantum mechanics, consciousness can't violate the laws of physics. It can only influence probabilities within the range of physical possibility. You can't manifest yourself teleporting to Mars because that's not within the probability distribution of quantum events accessible from your current state. But you might be able to influence the probability of receiving an unexpected phone call because phone calls are already within the range of possibility. Moreover, the effectiveness of conscious influence might depend on what physicists call the degree of freedom in the system. Highly constrained systems, like the lottery numbers that are determined by mechanical processes designed specifically to be random and tamper-proof, might be much less susceptible to conscious influence than complex chaotic systems, like human behavior and decision-making. There's also the question of competing intentions. If quantum manifestation works through consciousness-collapsing wave functions, then everyone's consciousness is participating in this process simultaneously. Your intention to get a particular job is competing with other people's intentions to get the same job, with the employer's intentions about who to hire, with countless other conscious and unconscious influences. The final outcome emerges from this complex negotiation of multiple consciousness, mediated collapses, not from any single person's will imposed on reality. This brings us to an important ethical dimension of quantum manifestation. If consciousness really can influence reality through retrocausality, what are the implications for how we should use this ability? The ancient traditions that developed manifestation practices often emphasize the importance of alignment with universal good, of ensuring that your desires don't harm others, of seeking win-win outcomes where everyone benefits. From a quantum perspective, this ethical dimension might be more than just moral guidance, it might be practical necessity. Intentions that align with the greater good might face less resistance from competing conscious influences. They might find more open pathways through the probability landscape. Think of it like water flowing downhill. It naturally finds the path of least resistance. Intentions that benefit multiple conscious beings might similarly find easier paths through the quantum probability fields. But let's dive deeper into the mechanics of how consciousness might actually achieve this influence. One of the most promising frameworks comes from something called quantum information theory. In this view, reality is fundamentally made of information, not matter or energy. Particles are just stable patterns of information. Forces are just information exchanges, and consciousness might be the process by which information becomes experience. In quantum information theory, the universe is constantly processing information, computing its next state from its current state according to the laws of physics. Every particle interaction is a tiny computation, every quantum measurement is an information transfer. The universe is, in essence, a vast quantum computer computing itself into existence moment by moment. Consciousness in this framework might be a special kind of information processing that can influence the quantum computations happening throughout reality. When you hold a clear intention, you're creating a coherent information pattern in your consciousness. This pattern might then influence the quantum information processing happening in your brain, which influences your behavior, which influences the world around you, creating ripples of influence that propagate both forward and backward in time through the quantum information networks that underlie reality. This information theoretic view might also explain why certain states of consciousness seem more effective for manifestation than others. Meditation, for instance, is often recommended as a foundation for manifestation practice. From a quantum information perspective, meditation might work by reducing the noise in your consciousness information processing. The calmer and more coherent your mental state, the clearer the signal you're sending into the quantum information networks. Similarly, emotional intensity is often emphasized in manifestation practices. Emotions might amplify the information signal, making it more likely to influence quantum probabilities. Think of consciousness as a quantum transmitter. A weak scattered signal, like a vague wish or a half-hearted intention, might barely register in the quantum field. But a strong coherent signal, like a deeply felt, vividly imagined future state, might create significant probability shifts. Let's explore another fascinating aspect of this quantum manifestation model, the role of what we might call quantum tunneling of possibilities. In quantum mechanics, particles can tunnel through barriers that they classically shouldn't be able to cross. An electron can appear on the other side of an energy barrier without having enough energy to go over it. It's as if the particle borrows energy from the quantum vacuum, uses it to cross the barrier, and then pays it back on the other side. Could something similar happen with life possibilities? Could consciousness, through focused intention, enable a kind of possibility tunneling where outcomes that seem classically impossible become quantum mechanically accessible? This wouldn't mean violating physical laws, but rather finding quantum pathways through the possibility landscape that classical thinking would never discover. Imagine your life as a landscape of possibilities, with valleys representing easy, probable outcomes and mountains representing difficult, improbable ones. Classical thinking says you need to climb over the mountains to reach the valleys on the other side. But quantum thinking suggests there might be tunnels through the mountains, probability pathways that consciousness can access through the right kind of focused intention. These quantum tunnels might explain those seemingly miraculous coincidences that sometimes occur when people are deeply aligned with their intentions. The unexpected meeting that changes everything. The perfect opportunity that appears just when needed, the solution that suddenly becomes obvious after seeming impossible. These might not be miracles in the supernatural sense, but rather natural consequences of consciousness navigating the quantum possibility landscape. But here's where our exploration takes another fascinating turn. What if the process of manifestation isn't just about influencing external reality? What if it's also, or perhaps primarily, about selecting which version of yourself experiences which version of reality? This brings us to the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, one of the most mind-bending ideas in all of physics. According to the many worlds interpretation, every quantum measurement causes the universe to split into multiple parallel realities, one for each possible outcome. When a quantum particle is measured and found to be spin up, the universe splits into one branch where it's spin up and another where it's spin down. Both branches are equally real, but they can no longer interact with each other. If this interpretation is correct, and many physicists believe it is, then there are countless parallel versions of you experiencing every possible variation of your life. There's a version where you got that job, and a version where you didn't. A version where you met your soulmate, and a version where you're still searching. All these versions are equally real, equally valid, equally you. In this many worlds context, manifestation might not be about changing reality, but about navigating through the multiverse to experience the branch that aligns with your intentions. When you focus on a particular outcome, you might be steering your consciousness toward the branches where the outcome occurs. You're not creating the reality. All possible realities already exist. You're choosing which one to experience. This navigation might work through what physicists call quantum decoherence. As your brain processes information and makes decisions, it's constantly decohering, branching into multiple versions. Each thought, each choice, each observation causes your consciousness to branch. By holding clear intentions and making choices aligned with those intentions, you might influence which branches your consciousness is more likely to follow. Think of it like navigating a river delta where the water constantly splits into different channels. You can't change where the channels go, they're determined by the landscape. But by shifting your weight, by paddling in certain directions, you can influence which channels you're more likely to follow. Similarly, by shifting your consciousness, by focusing your intentions, you might influence which branches of the multiverse you're more likely to experience. This many worlds view of manifestation has some intriguing implications. It suggests that success isn't about forcing a particular outcome to occur, but about aligning yourself with the version of the multiverse where the outcome already exists. It's less about creation and more about navigation, less about changing reality and more about choosing reality. It also suggests that every possibility you can imagine already exists somewhere in the multiverse. That dream life you envision, there's a branch where you're living it. That fear you're trying to avoid, there's a branch where it happens. The question isn't whether these realities exist, but which ones you'll navigate toward through your choices and intentions. But this raises a profound question about identity and continuity. If there are countless versions of you across the multiverse, what makes you, you? What maintains your sense of being a single, continuous self rather than fragmenting into countless parallel selves? This is where consciousness might play its most fundamental role. Perhaps consciousness is what creates the illusion, or maybe it's not an illusion, of being a single continuous self navigating through the multiverse. Your stream of consciousness, your subjective experience of being you, might be the thread that connects all the quantum branches you traverse. You experience yourself as one person making choices and experiencing outcomes, even though at the quantum level, you're constantly branching into multiple versions. This could explain why manifestation practices often emphasize maintaining a clear, consistent vision of your desired outcome. If you're constantly changing your intentions, you might be scattering your consciousness across too many divergent branches, reducing the probability of following any particular path to completion. But if you hold a steady intention, you create what we might call a probability gradient that guides your consciousness toward the branches where that intention is realized. Let's delve into another layer of this quantum mystery, the role of what physicists call quantum entanglement in the manifestation process. Entanglement is perhaps the strangest feature of quantum mechanics. When particles become entangled, they remain connected regardless of the distance between them. Measure one particle, and you instantly know something about its entangled partner, even if it's on the other side of the universe. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, and spent years trying to prove it couldn't be real. But experiment after experiment has confirmed that entanglement is indeed a fundamental feature of reality. Particles that have interacted remain connected in ways that transcend space and time. Now, consider that every particle in your body has, at some point in cosmic history, interacted with particles throughout the universe. During the Big Bang, all particles were in close proximity, potentially entangling with each other. As the universe expanded and cooled, these entanglements weren't necessarily broken. They might have become diluted, obscured by decoherence, but the connections might still exist at some level. This means you might be quantum entangled with everything and everyone around you, connected through invisible quantum threads that transcend the apparent separation of space. When you hold an intention, when you collapse a wave function through observation, you might be sending subtle influences through these entanglement networks, affecting probabilities throughout your environment. This could explain the phenomenon of synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that seem too perfect to be random. When you're strongly focused on a particular intention, you might unconsciously influence the behavior of entangled systems around you. The friend who calls just when you need them, the book that falls off the shelf with exactly the information you were seeking, the stranger who says exactly what you needed to hear. These might not be coincidences, but rather the result of quantum influences propagating through entanglement networks. But entanglement might work in even more profound ways. Some physicists have proposed that consciousness itself might be an entanglement phenomenon. The unified experience of being a single self, despite having billions of neurons processing information independently, might arise from quantum entanglement between neural microtubules. Your sense of being one consciousness rather than billions of separate processes might be because all those processes are quantum entangled into a single coherent system. If consciousness is an entanglement phenomenon, then the boundaries between self and other, between internal and external, become much less clear. Your consciousness might not be confined to your skull, but might extend through entanglement networks to influence and be influenced by the consciousness of others. This isn't telepathy in the science fiction sense, but it might be a kind of quantum correlation where conscious states in one person influence the probabilities of conscious states in others. This interconnectedness might be why manifestation practices often emphasize the importance of believing that the universe is conspiring to help you. If consciousness is entangled across multiple beings, then holding a positive expectation might literally influence the probability that others will act in ways that support your intentions, not through coercion or manipulation, but through a kind of quantum resonance where aligned intentions reinforce each other. Let's explore this resonance idea further. In physics, resonance occurs when a system is driven at its natural frequency, causing it to oscillate with greater amplitude. A singer can shatter a wine glass by singing the exact note that matches the glass's resonant frequency. Similar principles might apply to consciousness and manifestation. Every thought, every emotion, every intention might have what we could call a quantum frequency, a particular pattern of neural firing, a specific configuration of quantum states in the brain. When you hold a clear intention repeatedly, you might be establishing a resonant frequency in your consciousness. This frequency might then resonate with similar frequencies in the quantum field, attracting or aligning with outcomes that match that frequency. This could explain why emotional alignment is so important in manifestation practices. It's not enough to think about what you want. You need to feel it, to embody the emotional frequency of already having it. Fear and doubt might create discordant frequencies that interfere with manifestation, while confidence and gratitude might create harmonious frequencies that amplify it. Think of reality as a vast quantum symphony, with every conscious being contributing their own notes and harmonies. When you're in fear or doubt, you're playing discordant notes that clash with the music you're trying to create. But when you're in alignment, when you're feeling the emotions of your desired outcome, you're playing harmonious notes that blend and amplify with the cosmic symphony. This musical metaphor might be more than just poetic. Some physicists have proposed that the universe might literally be made of vibrations, quantum oscillations in fundamental fields. String theory, one of the leading candidates for a theory of everything, suggests that all particles are actually tiny vibrating strings, with different vibration patterns creating different particles. In this view, reality is quite literally a cosmic symphony of vibrating quantum strings. If reality is made of vibrations, then consciousness might influence reality by adding its own vibrations to the mix. Your thoughts and intentions might be quantum vibrations that interfere constructively or destructively with the vibrations of the quantum field. Constructive interference, where your vibrations align with and amplify the field's vibrations, might manifest as synchronicities and desired outcomes. Destructive interference, where your vibrations cancel out the field's vibrations, might manifest as obstacles and resistance. This vibrational view might also explain why certain times and places seem more conducive to manifestation. Just as acoustic spaces have different resonant properties, making some venues better for concerts than others, different quantum environments might have different manifestation properties. Times of transition, like dawn and dusk, might have more fluid quantum states. Sacred spaces, where many people have focused their intentions over time, might have established resonant fields that amplify manifestation. But let's ground this exploration in something more concrete by examining specific experimental evidence that suggests consciousness might indeed influence physical reality. One of the most intriguing lines of research comes from random number generator experiments conducted at Princeton University and other institutions. These experiments use quantum random number generators, devices that produce truly random numbers based on quantum processes like radioactive decay. The randomness is fundamental, not just practical. According to quantum mechanics, there's no hidden variable determining the outcome. It's genuinely random. Yet when human operators attempt to mentally influence these devices, small but statistically significant deviations from randomness occur. The effects are tiny, typically shifting the results by less than 1%. But across millions of trials, the deviation from chance is clear and consistent. When operators intend for more ones than zeros, slightly more ones appear. When they intend the opposite, the balance shifts the other way. It's as if consciousness is gently nudging the quantum dice, not enough to control the outcome completely, but enough to create a measurable bias. Even more intriguing are the field consciousness experiments, where random number generators are placed in locations where many people are focused on the same thing. During events like global meditations, major sporting events, or significant world happenings, these devices show increased deviation from randomness. It's as if collective focused consciousness creates a field effect that influences quantum processes. The Global Consciousness Project, which maintains a network of random number generators around the world, has documented numerous instances where global events correlate with statistical anomalies in their data. The patterns suggest that when human consciousness becomes coherent on a large scale, when many minds focus on the same thing, it creates measurable effects in quantum systems. These experiments don't prove that consciousness can manifest specific outcomes in the macroscopic world. The effects are subtle, statistical, and wouldn't help you win the lottery or levitate objects. But they do suggest that consciousness might have a genuine, if subtle, influence on quantum processes. And if consciousness can influence quantum processes, and if quantum processes underlie all of reality, then the door remains open for consciousness to influence reality in ways we're only beginning to understand. Let's turn our attention now to the practical side of quantum manifestation, exploring how these theoretical principles might be applied in daily life. Remember, we're in the realm of informed speculation here, extrapolating from quantum mechanics to consciousness in ways that mainstream science hasn't fully validated. But the beauty of being at the edge of knowledge is that we get to explore possibilities while they're still shimmering with mystery. The first principle of practical quantum manifestation might be what we could call coherence cultivation. If consciousness influences reality through quantum processes, then the coherence of your consciousness matters. A scattered, chaotic mental state might produce scattered, chaotic influences on the quantum field, but a calm, focused, coherent state might produce clear, directed influences. This is where practices like meditation become not just helpful, but potentially essential. Meditation isn't just about feeling peaceful, though that's certainly pleasant. From a quantum perspective, meditation might be about creating coherence in the quantum processes of your brain, aligning the billions of neural quantum events into a unified, powerful signal. Think of the difference between regular light and laser light. Regular light contains many frequencies going in many directions, its energy scattered and diffuse. But laser light is coherent, all the photons aligned in frequency and direction, creating a beam that can cut through steel or carry information across vast distances. Similarly, regular consciousness might be scattered across many thoughts and feelings, but meditative consciousness might be coherent. all aspects aligned toward a single intention. The second principle might be what we call temporal anchoring. If retrocausality is real, if the future can influence the past, then creating a clear, emotionally vivid future state might be essential for manifestation. This isn't just visualization, though that's part of it. It's about creating what we might call a consciousness beacon in your desired future, something so clear and compelling that it can send influences backward through time. This might be why so many manifestation teachers emphasize feeling as if your desire has already been fulfilled. When you generate the emotions of success, gratitude, satisfaction, as if they're happening now, you might be creating that future anchor point. You're not pretending or deceiving yourself. You're establishing a quantum connection between your present consciousness and a specific future state. The third principle could be called probability navigation. If many worlds is correct, if all possible futures exist in parallel branches of reality, then manifestation isn't about creating your desired future but about navigating toward it. Every choice you make, every thought you think, influences which branch you're likely to experience next. This means that small consistent actions aligned with your intention might be more powerful than grand gestures. Each aligned choice is like a small course correction, gradually steering you toward the branches where your desire is realized. It's not about making one perfect choice, but about making many small choices that collectively guide you through the probability landscape. The fourth principle might be entanglement awareness. If you're quantum entangled with everything around you, then your manifestation isn't happening in isolation. You're part of a vast web of interconnected consciousness, all influencing each other through quantum correlations. This suggests that manifestation might work better when it benefits others as well as yourself. An intention that creates positive outcomes for multiple people might find more support in the entanglement network. It might resonate with more consciousness fields, creating constructive interference that amplifies the probability of manifestation. This could explain why service-oriented goals often manifest more easily than purely selfish ones. When you intend to create something that serves others, you're aligning with the natural tendency of entangled systems to correlate and cooperate. You're swimming with the quantum current rather than against it. The fifth principle could be called resistance release. In quantum mechanics, observation can freeze a system in place through the quantum Zeno effect. Similarly, obsessive focus on an outcome might actually prevent it from manifesting by locking the probability waves in their current configuration. This might be why letting go is often described as essential to manifestation. It's not about giving up your desire, but about allowing the probability waves to evolve naturally toward your intended outcome. Think of it like planting a seed. You need to prepare the soil and provide water, but then you need to let go and allow the natural growth process to unfold. Constantly digging up the seed to check if it's growing would prevent it from actually growing. The sixth principle might be synchronicity recognition. If your intentions are influencing probabilities through quantum processes, then synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, might be the observable signs of this influence. Learning to recognize and follow synchronicities might be like learning to read the quantum weather, seeing which way the probability winds are blowing. This doesn't mean magical thinking, seeing signs everywhere that confirm what you want to believe. It means developing a sensitivity to genuine patterns and correlations that emerge when your consciousness is aligned with your intentions. The unexpected opportunity, the chance meeting, the perfect timing, these might be quantum breadcrumbs leading you toward your desired outcome. Now, let's explore some specific techniques that might leverage these quantum principles. Again, we're in the realm of experimental practice here, applying theoretical physics to consciousness in ways that haven't been fully tested. But sometimes the most interesting discoveries come from bold experimentation at the edges of knowledge. The first technique we might call quantum feeling. This involves generating the complete sensory and emotional experience of your desired outcome as vividly as possible. But here's the quantum twist. You do this while maintaining awareness that you're creating a future anchor point, not just imagining. Sit quietly and bring your desired outcome to mind. But instead of just visualizing it, engage all your senses. What would you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch in that future moment? More importantly, what would you feel emotionally? Generate those feelings as intensely as you can. Joy, satisfaction, gratitude, peace, whatever emotions would naturally arise from achieving your desire. But here's the crucial part: as you generate these feelings, imagine them radiating backward through time, reaching from that future moment back to your present self. Imagine your future self having achieved the desire, sending a signal back through the quantum field saying, "This is where we're going. This is the probability branch we're selecting." The second technique could be called probability shifting meditation. This involves using meditation to create coherence in your consciousness and then gently directing that coherence toward your intended outcome. Begin with a standard meditation practice, focusing on your breath or a mantra to calm your mind. As you reach a state of mental stillness, bring your intention to mind, but hold it lightly, like a butterfly resting on your palm. Don't grasp at it or force it, simply let it rest in your awareness. Now, imagine the quantum field around you as an ocean of probabilities, countless possible futures shimmering like waves on water. See your intention as a gentle current in this ocean, not forcing the waves but influencing their direction. With each breath, imagine this current growing slightly stronger, the probabilities shifting slightly more toward your desired outcome. The key is to maintain a balance between intention and relaxation. Too much force, and you create turbulence that disrupts the probability patterns. Too little intention, and nothing changes. Find the sweet spot where you're clearly focused but not forcing, intending but not demanding. The third technique might be called timeline jumping. This is based on the many worlds interpretation and involves consciously choosing to align with the version of yourself that has already achieved your desire. Throughout your day, periodically pause and ask yourself, what would the version of me who has already achieved this desire be thinking right now? How would they be feeling? What choices would they be making? Then, as much as possible, align your thoughts, feelings, and choices with that version of yourself. This isn't about pretending or lying to yourself. It's about recognizing that in the quantum multiverse, that successful version of you already exists, and you're choosing to navigate toward that branch of reality. Each time you align with that version, you're making a small quantum jump toward that timeline. The fourth technique could be called entanglement blessing. This involves consciously sending positive intentions to others, recognizing that through quantum entanglement, blessing others might create resonances that support your own manifestation. Take time each day to genuinely wish for the success and happiness of others, especially those connected to your own desires. If you're manifesting a new job, send positive intentions to everyone at that company. If you're manifesting a relationship, send love to everyone seeking love. If you're manifesting healing, send healing intentions to all who are suffering. This isn't about manipulation or trying to get something in return. It's about recognizing the quantum interconnectedness of all consciousness and choosing to be a positive influence in the entanglement network. The blessings you send out might create quantum correlations that make your own manifestation more likely. The fifth technique might be called quantum journaling. This involves writing about your experiences and intentions in a way that acknowledges the quantum nature of reality and your role in collapsing probabilities. Each morning, write about your intentions as if you're documenting a scientific experiment. Note the quantum state of your consciousness, coherent or scattered, aligned or conflicted. Describe the probability landscape as you perceive it, which outcomes feel more or less likely. Record any synchronicities or quantum correlations you've noticed. Each evening, review the day from a quantum perspective. Which choices moved you toward your desired probability branch? Which moved you away? What quantum patterns did you observe? This isn't about judgment, but about developing awareness of how your consciousness navigates the probability landscape. But let's dive even deeper into the mysteries of time and consciousness, because there's another layer to the story that we haven't fully explored yet. What if the process of manifestation isn't just about the future influencing the present, but about something even more profound, the recognition that linear time itself might be an illusion? In quantum mechanics, the fundamental equations don't contain an arrow of time. The Schrödinger equation, which governs how quantum systems evolve, is perfectly reversible. You can run it forward or backward with equal validity. This suggests that at the quantum level, past and future might not be as distinct as they seem in our everyday experience. Some physicists have proposed that time might be emergent, arising from more fundamental timeless processes, Carlo Rovelli, a leading quantum gravity researcher, argues that time might be a consequence of our perspective, our inability to see the complete quantum state of the universe. From a God's eye view, seeing all quantum correlations and entanglements, time might not exist at all. If time is emergent rather than fundamental, then manifestation might not be about influencing the future or being influenced by it. It might be about accessing the timeless quantum realm where all possibilities exist simultaneously and selecting which possibility to experience as your temporal reality. This connects to something called the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, the fundamental equation of quantum cosmology. This equation describes the quantum state of the entire universe, and remarkably, it contains no reference to time. The universe in this view doesn't evolve in time. Instead, time emerges from the relationships between different parts of the universal wave function. For consciousness, this might mean that your experience of temporal flow, of past, present and future, is a kind of navigation through a timeless quantum landscape. Your intentions and observations don't change this landscape. It's eternal and unchanging, but they do determine which path through the landscape you experience as your life story. Imagine reality as a vast crystalline structure where every moment, every possibility, exists eternally. Your consciousness is like a light moving through this crystal, illuminating one path, one sequence of moments, creating the experience of temporal flow. Manifestation in this view is about choosing which path your consciousness light follows through the eternal crystal of possibilities. This timeless view might explain precognition and intuition. If all moments exist simultaneously in the quantum crystal, then consciousness might occasionally access information from what we call the future, but which is really just another region of the timeless structure. Intuitions about future events might be glimpses of the path your consciousness is likely to follow through the crystal. It might also explain why some people report that major manifestations often feel like remembering rather than creating. When a long-held desire finally manifests, there's sometimes a sense of recognition of, oh yes, of course, this is how it was always going to be. This might be because at some level, consciousness knows the entire path through the crystal, even if it can only experience one moment at a time. But this raises profound questions about free will and determinism. If all possibilities exist timelessly, are we really choosing our path, or are we simply experiencing a predetermined journey through the crystal? This is where the quantum nature of consciousness becomes crucial. In quantum mechanics, observation doesn't just reveal pre-existing properties, it participates in creating them. Similarly, consciousness might not just be experiencing a predetermined path through the possibility crystal. It might be actively selecting which path becomes the experienced reality through the act of observation. Think of it like a quantum version of those choose your own adventure books. All possible stories exist in the book simultaneously, but which story you experience depends on your choices. Except in the quantum version, your choices aren't just selecting from pre-written options, they're participating in writing the story as you read it, collapsing the superposition of all possible stories into the one you experience. This participatory universe model, proposed by physicist John Wheeler, suggests that consciousness and cosmos are engaged in a kind of cosmic dance, each bringing the other into being. The universe provides the quantum possibilities, consciousness collapses them into experienced realities, and those realities become the history from which new possibilities emerge. In this view, manifestation is neither purely creative nor purely selective. It's participatory, a collaboration between consciousness and cosmos to explore the infinite possibilities of existence. Your intentions don't force the universe to comply with your will, but neither are you passive, simply accepting whatever the universe provides. You're an active participant in the ongoing creation of reality. This participatory view might explain why alignment is so important in manifestation. When your intentions align with what we might call the natural flow of the cosmos, when they serve not just your individual desires but the greater unfolding of consciousness, they might encounter less resistance in the probability fields. It's like sailing with the cosmic winds rather than against them. But what determines this cosmic flow? What creates the probability gradients that make some outcomes more likely than others? This brings us to one of the deepest mysteries in physics, the nature of the laws of nature themselves. We typically think of physical laws as fixed rules that govern how reality operates. But where do these laws come from? Why these particular laws and not others? Some physicists have proposed that the laws themselves might be emergent, arising from more fundamental processes, and consciousness might play a role in this emergence. If consciousness participates in collapsing quantum possibilities into actualities, it might also participate in establishing the patterns we recognize as physical laws, not in the sense that we can consciously violate or change these laws, but in the sense that the laws themselves might be crystallized patterns of consciousness, cosmos interaction accumulated over cosmic time. This might sound far-fetched, but consider that many physical constants seem fine, tuned for the existence of consciousness. If the strength of gravity was slightly different, stars couldn't form. If the electromagnetic force was slightly different, chemistry wouldn't work. The universe seems precisely calibrated to allow consciousness to emerge. One explanation for this fine tuning is the anthropic principle we observe a universe compatible with consciousness, because we couldn't observe any other kind. But another possibility is that consciousness and cosmos have been evolving, mutually shaping each other since the beginning of time, or perhaps before time began. In this evolutionary view, manifestation isn't about imposing your will on an external universe. It's about participating in the ongoing dialogue between consciousness and cosmos, adding your voice to the conversation that shapes reality. Your intentions and observations are part of the feedback loop through which the universe becomes aware of itself and explores its own possibilities. This brings us to perhaps the most profound aspect of quantum manifestation, the possibility that individual manifestation is actually an expression of cosmic manifestation. The universe, seeking to know itself, manifests as billions of conscious beings, each exploring different aspects of possibility. Your desires might not be just personal wants, but cosmic impulses, the universe exploring what it's like to be you, desiring and achieving particular experiences. This doesn't diminish the importance of your individual experience. If anything, it elevates it. You're not just a separate being trying to get what you want from an indifferent universe. You're the universe itself, experiencing what it's like to be human, to desire, to strive, to manifest. Your successes and failures, your joys and sorrows are all part of the cosmic experiment in consciousness. From this perspective, resistance to manifestation might sometimes be valuable information, rather than just an obstacle. If something isn't manifesting despite clear intention and aligned action, it might be because the universe, through you, is learning something important from the experience of not getting what you want. The delay, the redirection, the unexpected outcome might all be part of a larger pattern that becomes clear only in retrospect. This cosmic view might also explain why surrender is often described as the final key to manifestation. Surrender doesn't mean giving up or not caring. It means recognizing that you're part of something larger than your individual self, and trusting that larger process even when you can't see where it's leading. Think of it like being a musician in a cosmic orchestra. You have your part to play, your notes to contribute, but you're also listening to the other instruments, responding to the conductor, participating in creating something greater than any individual part. Sometimes the music calls for you to play loudly and prominently. Sometimes it calls for you to be quiet and let others take the lead. The beauty emerges from the interplay, not from any single instrument dominating. But let's bring this back to the practical, to the lived experience of being human with desires and dreams. How does understanding quantum manifestation from this vast cosmic perspective actually help in daily life? First, it might relieve the pressure and self-blame that often accompany manifestation practices. If you're participating in a cosmic process rather than trying to force personal outcomes, then delays and redirections aren't failures. They're part of the learning, part of the exploration, part of the dance between consciousness and possibility. Second, it might inspire a sense of wonder and curiosity about the manifestation process itself. Instead of seeing manifestation as a tool to get what you want, you might see it as an opportunity to explore the nature of consciousness and reality. Each intention becomes an experiment. Each outcome provides data about how consciousness and cosmos interact. Third, it might encourage a more playful and experimental approach. If reality is fundamentally quantum, probabilistic rather than deterministic, then there's always room for surprise, for unexpected possibilities, for quantum leaps that classical thinking wouldn't predict. You can hold your intentions clearly while remaining open to outcomes that might be even better than what you imagined. Fourth, it might foster a deeper sense of connection with all of existence. If you're quantum entangled with everything, if you're participating in a cosmic consciousness experiment, then you're never truly alone or separate. Every manifestation is a collective creation. Every success is shared. Every challenge is an opportunity for collective learning. Fifth, it might cultivate patience and trust. If the future is influencing the present through retrocausality, if time itself might be an illusion, then the linear sequence of cause and effect that creates impatience might be less relevant than we think. Your future success might already be sending ripples backward, orchestrating present events in ways you can't yet perceive. Let's explore one more fascinating aspect of quantum manifestation, the role of what we might call quantum creativity. In classical physics, the future is determined by the past. Given complete information about the present state of a system, you could in principle calculate its entire future evolution. But quantum mechanics introduces genuine novelty, real creativity into the universe. When a quantum system is measured, the outcome isn't predetermined. It's genuinely random within the probability distribution. This means the universe is constantly creating new information, new patterns, new possibilities that didn't exist before. And if consciousness plays a role in measurement, then consciousness participates in this cosmic creativity. Your manifestations might not just be selections from a menu of pre-existing possibilities. They might involve genuine creation, the emergence of novel patterns that the universe has never explored before. When you hold a unique intention, when you combine ideas in new ways, when you imagine something that's never been imagined, you might be adding new notes to the cosmic symphony, new colors to the universal palette. This creative aspect might be why originality and authenticity seem to support manifestation. When you're trying to manifest something that's truly aligned with your unique perspective and gifts, you're not competing with others for a limited resource. You're creating something new, adding to the sum total of possibilities in the universe. It might also explain why copying others' manifestation goals often doesn't work as well as following your own authentic desires. If you're trying to manifest someone else's dream, you're not adding anything new to the cosmic conversation. But when you're manifesting your own unique vision, you're participating in the universe's creative exploration of its own possibilities. This brings us to the relationship between quantum manifestation and meaning. In classical physics, the universe is meaningless, just particles and forces following mechanical laws. But if consciousness participates in creating reality through quantum processes, then meaning might be fundamental rather than incidental. Every observation, every collapse of the wave function, is a moment where consciousness extracts meaning from quantum possibilities. The pattern you perceive, the story you experience, the significance you attribute, these aren't just subjective overlays on an objective reality. They might be part of how reality itself crystallizes from possibility into actuality. Your search for meaning, your desire to manifest a meaningful life, might not be a purely personal quest. It might be the universe itself seeking meaning through your experience. The goals that feel most meaningful to you might be the ones that resonate most strongly with this cosmic meaning, making process, and therefore might be the ones most likely to manifest. But meaning isn't static. It evolves as consciousness evolves. What felt meaningful yesterday might not feel meaningful today. This might be why manifestation often involves a journey of discovery, where what you thought you wanted transforms into something else as you grow and change. Sometimes you might manifest exactly what you intended, only to discover it doesn't satisfy you the way you expected. This isn't a failure of manifestation but a success of learning. The universe, through you, has learned something about what does and doesn't create meaning and fulfillment. This learning then informs future manifestations, refining the cosmic understanding of consciousness and desire. As we near the end of our exploration tonight, let's consider the ethical implications of quantum manifestation. If consciousness really can influence probability fields through quantum processes, what responsibilities come with this power? First, there's the responsibility of awareness. If your thoughts and emotions are influencing the quantum field even subtly, then maintaining positive, constructive states of consciousness becomes a service to the whole. This doesn't mean suppressing negative emotions or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It means taking responsibility for your inner state and working to transform negativity rather than spreading it through the quantum field. Second, there's the responsibility of intention. If your focused intentions can shift probabilities, then choosing those intentions wisely becomes crucial. This might mean examining your desires carefully, asking not just what do I want, but why do I want it and how will it affect others. It might mean aligning your personal manifestations with the greater good, recognizing that we're all entangled in the same quantum web. Third, there's the responsibility of practice. If quantum manifestation is a real phenomenon, then developing your ability to use it constructively is like developing any other powerful capacity. It requires practice, discipline, and wisdom. This might involve regular meditation to maintain consciousness coherence, study to understand the principles involved, and ethical reflection to ensure you're using these abilities wisely. Fourth, there's the responsibility of sharing. If you discover techniques or principles that work for manifestation, sharing them with others isn't just generosity, it might be cosmic necessity. The more conscious beings who understand and can work with quantum manifestation principles, the more coherent humanity's collective influence on the probability fields might become. But perhaps the deepest responsibility is to approach quantum manifestation with humility and wonder rather than greed and manipulation. If we're truly participating in a cosmic consciousness experiment, then the point isn't just to get what we want. It's to learn, to grow, to explore, to contribute to the universe's understanding of itself. This might mean celebrating when manifestation doesn't work the way we expected as much as when it does. Every surprise, every redirect, every unexpected outcome is a valuable data in the cosmic experiment. The universe is learning through our experiences, and we're privileged to be conscious participants in this learning. As we drift toward the close of our journey tonight, let's revisit the core insight we've been exploring, that manifestation might work backward, the future influencing the present through quantum retrocausal channels. This isn't just a quirky detail of quantum mechanics, it's a profound reconceptualization of how consciousness and reality interact. If your future is reaching back to influence your present, then every moment is a negotiation between what has been and what could be. Your past provides the raw materials, the circumstances and conditions you're working with, but your future, especially the future you're consciously intending and emotionally investing in, provides the attractor, the organizing principle that guides how those raw materials are shaped. This means you're never stuck, never without options, never completely determined by your past. As long as you can imagine and emotionally connect with a different future, that future can reach back and influence your present probabilities. The influence might be subtle, it might take time to manifest, it might work in unexpected ways, but the channel is always open. This also means that hope isn't just a feeling or an attitude. Hope might be a quantum force, a future-focused intention that creates real effects in the present. When you hope for something better, when you hold that vision even in difficult circumstances, you might be creating a beacon in the future that guides you through the darkness of the present. Similarly, fear might be more than just an emotion. Fear of a particular future might actually increase its probability by creating a negative attractor in the quantum field. This doesn't mean you should suppress or deny fear when it arises, but it does suggest that transforming fear into intention, what do I want instead of what I'm afraid of, might be crucial for effective manifestation. The practice of gratitude takes on new significance from this perspective. When you feel grateful for something as if it has already occurred, you're not engaging in self-deception. You're creating an emotional resonance with the future state, strengthening its retrocausal influence on your present. Gratitude becomes a kind of temporal bridge, connecting present and future through emotional coherence. But perhaps the most beautiful implication of quantum retrocausality is that you're never alone in your manifestation efforts. Your future self, the one who has already achieved what you're intending, is actively participating in the process. They're sending influence backward, creating synchronicities, arranging circumstances, guiding you toward them. This future self isn't separate from you, it's you, just experiencing a different slice of the timeless quantum crystal. When you feel inspired, when you have an intuition, when you notice a synchronicity, it might be your future self saying, yes, this way, you're on the right path. Of course, multiple future selves exist in the quantum multiverse, each in different branches of possibility. The one that influences you most strongly might be the one you resonate with most clearly through your intentions and emotions. By choosing which future self to connect with through your consciousness, you're selecting which branch of the multiverse you're most likely to experience. This creates a beautiful feedback loop. You imagine and intend a future. That imagined future becomes a possible future self. That future self influences your present through retrocausality. You make choices aligned with that influence. Those choices increase the probability of experiencing that future. The future self becomes more real, its influence becomes stronger, and the cycle continues. But remember, this isn't a mechanical process. It's creative, participatory, alive with possibility. The future that manifests might not be exactly what you imagined, because the universe is creative too, adding its own innovations to your intentions. The job you manifest might be different from what you visualize, but perfect in ways you couldn't have imagined. The relationship might not look like what you expected, but might teach you exactly what you need to learn. This creative collaboration between consciousness and cosmos means that manifestation is as much about discovery as it is about creation. You're not just manifesting things or circumstances, you're manifesting experiences that reveal new aspects of yourself and reality. Each manifestation is an exploration, an experiment, an adventure in consciousness. And sometimes, the greatest manifestations are the ones that surprise us completely, the ones we didn't consciously intend but that emerge from the deeper intelligence of the consciousness, cosmos collaboration. These might be the moments when the universe, through us, is exploring genuinely new territory, creating possibilities that have never existed before. As we float here together in the gentle space between waking and sleeping, between intention and surrender, between present and future, consider this. Your very existence, your consciousness, your ability to imagine and intend and hope might be the universe's greatest manifestation. Through you, the cosmos has manifested the ability to know itself, to explore itself, to create itself anew in each moment. Every desire you feel, every intention you hold, every future you imagine is the universe exploring its own possibilities through your unique perspective. You're not separate from the cosmic creative process. You're the process, localized in a particular body, focused through a particular mind, but connected through quantum entanglement to everything that is, was, and ever could be. Your manifestations, whether they seem small or large, personal or universal, are all part of this cosmic exploration. The cup of tea you manifest by intending it and then making it. The relationship you manifest through intention and openness. The career you manifest through vision and action. The healing you manifest through belief and treatment. They're all equally miraculous, equally quantum, equally sacred expressions of consciousness shaping reality through the power of intention. And the fact that manifestation might work backward, with the future influencing the present, means that the universe is even more magical and responsive than our ancestors dreamed. We're not trapped in a clockwork cosmos, grinding forward mechanically from past to future. We're participants in a living, creative, responsive universe where consciousness and possibility dance together in ways that science is only beginning to understand. So as you drift towards sleep tonight, or perhaps as you go about your day if you're listening at another time, remember that your consciousness is not a passive observer of reality. It's an active participant in reality's ongoing creation. Your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, they all matter. They all influence the quantum field of possibilities from which tomorrow crystallizes. And remember too that manifestation isn't about forcing or controlling. It's about participating, collaborating, dancing with the universe as it explores itself through you. Hold your intentions clearly but gently. Take aligned action but remain open to surprise. Trust the process even when you can't see where it's leading. Know that your future self is reaching back through time, guiding you toward your highest possibilities. The quantum field is alive with potential, shimmering with possibilities that await your conscious participation to become real. Your role is not to command this field, but to commune with it, to add your unique note to the cosmic symphony, to contribute your thread to the vast tapestry of existence. And perhaps, most importantly, approach this whole process with wonder rather than grasping, with curiosity rather than demand, with playfulness rather than desperation. The universe seems to respond better to joy than to need, to appreciation than to complaint, to love than to fear. Not because the universe is judging you, but because these states create more coherent quantum resonances, clearer channels for retrocausal influence, stronger bridges between present and future. So what future is calling to you through the quantum field? What version of yourself is reaching back through time, trying to guide you toward them? What synchronicities are you noticing that might be breadcrumbs on the path to your manifestation? What emotions are you generating that create resonance with your desired outcomes? These aren't just philosophical questions. According to the quantum model we've been exploring, they're practical tools for navigation through the probability landscape of your life. Every time you pause to feel into your future, every time you notice a synchronicity, every time you choose alignment over resistance, you're participating in the quantum manifestation process. And remember, this process is happening whether you're conscious of it or not. Your thoughts and emotions are always influencing the quantum field, always collapsing possibilities into actualities, always participating in the creation of reality. The question isn't whether you're manifesting. You're always manifesting something. The question is whether you're doing it consciously, deliberately, in alignment with your deepest desires and highest good. This brings us to a crucial point about what we might call quantum hygiene. Just as you maintain physical hygiene to keep your body healthy, maintaining quantum hygiene keeps your consciousness, reality interface clean and effective. This means regularly clearing negative thought patterns that might be creating unwanted attractors in the quantum field. It means consciously choosing which futures to energize through your attention and emotion. It means staying aware of the retrocausal influences you're both sending and receiving. Meditation, from this perspective, becomes not just a stress relief tool, but a quantum tuning practice. When you meditate, you're creating coherence in your consciousness, aligning the countless quantum processes in your brain into a unified field. This coherent field can then interact more effectively with the larger quantum field of reality, sending clearer intentions and receiving clearer guidance. But meditation isn't the only tool for quantum hygiene. Movement practices like yoga or Tai Chi might help by creating coherence between mind and body, aligning the quantum fields of your neurons with the quantum fields of your cells. Creative practices like art or music might help by opening channels to non-linear, non-local aspects of consciousness that have better access to quantum information. Even simple practices like spending time in nature might support quantum manifestation. Nature operates according to quantum principles at the molecular level, from photosynthesis to bird navigation. When you immerse yourself in nature, you might be entraining your consciousness to these natural quantum rhythms, becoming more coherent with the quantum processes that underlie all of life. Sleep and dreams deserve special attention in our exploration of quantum manifestation. During sleep, your conscious mind releases its grip on consensus reality, and your brain enters states that might be more quantum coherent than waking consciousness. Dreams might be glimpses into parallel branches of the multiverse, explorations of probability paths you're not taking in waking life, or communications from future selves trying to guide you towards certain outcomes. This might be why setting intentions before sleep is such a powerful practice. As you drift off, holding your desired outcome gently in awareness, you're programming your quantum navigator for the night's journey. Your sleeping brain, freed from the constraints of classical logic, might be able to access quantum information channels that are closed during waking hours. The insights, intuitions, and solutions that arise from sleep might be gifts from the quantum field, processed and delivered through your dreaming mind. The phenomenon of lucid dreaming takes on special significance from this quantum perspective. When you become conscious within a dream, you're directly experiencing the malleable nature of reality, the way consciousness can shape experience. Lucid dreams might be training grounds for quantum manifestation, safe spaces to practice collapsing possibilities into actualities without the constraints of physical law. But let's explore an even deeper aspect of this quantum dance, the role of love in manifestation. Love, in all its forms, romantic love, familial love, Self-love, universal love, might be more than just an emotion. It might be a fundamental force that creates coherence in the quantum field. When you love something or someone, you create what physicists might call a quantum bond, an entanglement that transcends space and time. This bond creates correlation patterns in the quantum field, making certain outcomes more probable. When you manifest from a place of love rather than fear or lack, you might be tapping into this fundamental coherence, creating force of the universe. Think about how love feels in your body, that warmth, that expansion, that sense of connection. These sensations might be your conscious experience of quantum coherence, of your personal quantum field aligning with larger patterns of universal order. When you generate love while holding your manifestation intention, you might be creating the optimal quantum conditions for that intention to manifest. This could explain why manifesting for others often feels easier than manifesting for yourself. When you hold a pure intention for someone else's well-being, you naturally generate love and release attachment. You create clear, coherent quantum patterns without the interference of ego, fear, or grasping. The manifestation flows more easily because the quantum channels are clearer. It might also explain why gratitude is such a powerful manifestation accelerator. Gratitude is a form of love. Love for what is, love for what's coming, love for the process itself. When you feel genuine gratitude, you create coherence between your present state and your desired future state. You're essentially telling the quantum field, yes, more of this please, and the field responds by shifting probabilities in that direction. But love in the context of quantum manifestation isn't just soft and gentle. It can be fierce, passionate, unwavering. The love that drives you to persist despite obstacles. The love that gives you courage to take quantum leaps. The love that burns away everything that isn't aligned with your truth. This too is part of the manifestation process. This fierce love might be what breaks through quantum barriers, creating what physicists call quantum tunneling events in your life. Just as particles can tunnel through energy barriers they shouldn't classically be able to cross, your consciousness, powered by love, might be able to tunnel through probability barriers to reach seemingly impossible outcomes. Let's consider the role of faith in quantum manifestation. Faith, often dismissed by rationalists as wishful thinking, might actually be a sophisticated quantum technology. Faith is holding a clear vision of an outcome even when current evidence suggests it's unlikely. From a quantum perspective, faith might be maintaining a future boundary condition despite present circumstances that seem to contradict it. When you have faith in your manifestation, you're refusing to let present observations collapse your future possibilities. You're keeping the quantum door open, maintaining superposition, allowing the probability waves to continue evolving toward your desired outcome. Faith becomes a kind of quantum stubbornness, a refusal to let current reality define future possibility. But faith in the quantum sense isn't blind. It's based on understanding the principles we've been exploring, that the future can influence the present, that consciousness participates in creating reality, that all possibilities exist in the quantum field waiting to be collapsed into actuality. Faith becomes informed trust in the quantum process, even when you can't see how it's working. This might be why doubt is so destructive to manifestation. Doubt is constantly collapsing the wave function into states of non-manifestation. Every time you doubt, you're observing the absence of your desire, strengthening the probability that it will continue to be absent. Doubt creates what we might call negative quantum feedback loops, where the absence of manifestation creates more doubt, which creates more absence. Breaking these negative loops requires what we might call quantum intervention, a deliberate shift in observation that disrupts the pattern. This might involve taking a break from focusing on the manifestation, allowing the probability waves to reset. Or it might involve a sudden decisive shift in perspective, what some traditions call a leap of faith, that breaks you out of the doubt cycle and into a new probability stream. The timing of manifestation is another fascinating aspect to explore through our quantum lens. Why do some things manifest quickly while others take years or never manifest at all? The quantum model suggests several factors might be at play. First, there's what we might call probability distance. Some outcomes are closer to your current state in probability space, requiring smaller quantum shifts to manifest. Others are farther away, requiring larger shifts or multiple sequential shifts. Manifesting a cup of coffee is probabilistically close. You know how to make coffee, you have access to coffee, the quantum shift required is minimal. Manifesting a complete career change might be probabilistically distant, requiring many intermediate shifts to bridge the gap. Second, there's quantum resistance from competing probability streams. If many other consciousnesses are intending outcomes that conflict with yours, or if you have unconscious parts of yourself resisting the manifestation, these create what we might call probability headwinds. Your manifestation has to work against these opposing forces, which might slow or prevent its realization. Third, there's the factor of quantum timing. Just as particles have optimal moments for quantum transitions, there might be optimal moments for manifestation. These might correspond to what astrologers call favorable aspects, what the I Ching calls opportune moments, or what we simply experience as good timing. The quantum field might have rhythms and cycles that make certain times more conducive to certain manifestations. Fourth, there's what we might call quantum complexity. Simple manifestations involve fewer quantum variables, fewer probability streams that need to align. Complex manifestations, like harmonious relationships or successful businesses, involve many variables, many consciousness streams, many probability factors that need to coordinate. These naturally take more time to orchestrate through the quantum field. Understanding these timing factors can help us develop what we might call quantum patience. Instead of getting frustrated when manifestations don't appear immediately, we can appreciate the complex quantum choreography that's occurring behind the scenes. Every delay might be allowing necessary alignments to occur, necessary lessons to be learned, necessary preparations to be made. This brings us to the phenomenon of divine timing, the sense that things happen exactly when they're supposed to happen. From a quantum perspective, this might not be divine in the religious sense, but it might reflect a deeper intelligence in the quantum field itself. The field might have its own optimization algorithms, finding the paths through probability space that serve not just individual desires but the evolution of consciousness as a whole. When something manifests at what seems like the perfect moment, even if it's later than you wanted, it might be because the quantum field was orchestrating a more complex solution than you could have imagined. The delay allowed other pieces to fall into place, other consciousnesses to align, other probability streams to synchronize in ways that create a better outcome than you could have planned. This suggests that surrender, that final stage of manifestation that so many teachings emphasize, might be about recognizing and trusting this deeper quantum intelligence. Surrender doesn't mean giving up your desire, it means releasing your ego's timeline and trusting the quantum field's optimization process. It means holding your intention clearly while allowing the how and when to be orchestrated by forces beyond your conscious understanding. But let's not forget the importance of action in quantum manifestation. While we've been exploring the consciousness side of the equation, action remains crucial. Actions are how consciousness interfaces with the classical world. They're how quantum possibilities become physical realities. Every action you take is a measurement in the quantum sense, collapsing possibilities into actualities. Aligned action, action that flows from your intention and moves you toward your desired outcome, creates what we might call classical quantum bridges. You're using classical means, physical actions in the material world, to create quantum effects, shifts in probability fields. The two realms, classical and quantum, work together in the manifestation process. This might explain why inspired action feels different from forced action. Inspired action might be action that's guided by quantum information, by retrocausal influences from your future self, by synchronistic alignments in the quantum field. It feels effortless because you're flowing with the quantum currents rather than against them. Forced action, on the other hand, might be trying to impose classical will on quantum processes, creating resistance and exhaustion. Learning to distinguish between inspired and forced action might be one of the most practical skills in quantum manifestation. This requires developing sensitivity to what we might call quantum feelings, those subtle sensations that indicate alignment or misalignment with the quantum flow. The feeling of expansion might indicate alignment. The feeling of contraction might indicate resistance. The feeling of excitement might indicate a quantum opportunity. The feeling of dread might indicate a probability path to avoid. As we continue our gentle exploration, let's consider the collective aspects of quantum manifestation. We've mostly been discussing individual manifestation, but what happens when groups of people focus on the same intention? This brings us into the realm of collective consciousness and its potential quantum effects. When multiple consciousnesses align with the same intention, they might create what physicists call constructive interference in the quantum field. Like waves on water that combine to create larger waves, aligned consciousness might combine to create stronger probability shifts. This could explain the power of group meditations, prayer circles, and collective visualizations. The Global Consciousness Project data we mentioned earlier supports this idea. During events that focus collective attention, random number generators around the world show statistical deviations. It's as if collective consciousness creates a field effect that influences quantum processes on a global scale. If collective attention can influence random number generators, what else might it influence? This collective aspect might be why movements and causes that capture widespread imagination sometimes manifest dramatic changes that seemed impossible beforehand. When enough consciousnesses align with a vision of change, the probability fields might shift dramatically, making previously improbable outcomes suddenly likely. Social movements, technological breakthroughs, cultural transformations, these might all involve collective quantum manifestation. But collective manifestation isn't always positive. Collective fear can create probability shifts toward negative outcomes. Mass hysteria, economic panics, and social breakdowns might involve collective consciousness, creating destructive interference patterns in the quantum field. This underscores the responsibility we have not just for our individual consciousness, but for what we contribute to collective consciousness. This brings us to an important consideration about the media we consume and the conversations we participate in. Every news story you read, every social media post you engage with, every conversation you have is potentially influencing your consciousness, and through it, the quantum field. If you're constantly consuming fear-based or negative content, you might be unconsciously participating in collective manifestation of undesired outcomes. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or living in denial. It means being conscious about how you engage with information and what state of consciousness you bring to that engagement. Can you stay informed about challenges while maintaining a solution-focused perspective? Can you acknowledge problems while holding vision for positive outcomes? Can you participate in necessary conversations while contributing constructive rather than destructive energy? The internet and social media have created unprecedented opportunities for collective consciousness to align rapidly around shared intentions. Viral movements, crowdfunding campaigns, and social media challenges show how quickly collective intention can manifest real-world outcomes. But they also show how quickly collective fear or outrage can manifest destructive outcomes. This might be why practices like loving kindness meditation, where you systematically send good wishes to yourself, loved ones, strangers, and even enemies, are so powerful. You're not just improving your own state of consciousness, you're contributing positive patterns to the collective quantum field, potentially influencing probability shifts that benefit everyone. Let's explore another practical dimension of quantum manifestation, the art of letting go. We've talked about surrender, but letting go is slightly different. It's the practice of releasing attachment to outcomes while maintaining clear intention. It's holding your desire lightly, like a bird that's free to fly away but chooses to stay on your hand. From a quantum perspective, attachment might create what we call observation pressure. When you're desperately attached to an outcome, you're constantly observing its absence, constantly collapsing the wave function into states of not having. It's like trying to watch a quantum particle so intensely that you lock it in place through the quantum Zeno effect. Letting go relieves this observation pressure, allowing the probability waves to flow more naturally toward your desired outcome. It's like relaxing your eyes to see those magic i3D images. The harder you try, the less you see, but when you relax and let go, the image suddenly appears. This might be why manifestations often occur right after you've given up or stopped thinking about them. The giving up isn't what causes the manifestation. Rather, the release of attachment, the letting go of observation pressure, allows probability patterns that have been building to finally crystallize into reality. But letting go doesn't mean not caring. It means caring from a place of trust rather than fear, abundance rather than lack, love rather than need. It means knowing that whether this particular manifestation occurs or not, you'll be okay. The universe will continue to provide opportunities, and consciousness will continue to explore possibilities through you. This quality of letting go while maintaining intention might be what distinguishes masters of manifestation from those who struggle with it. Masters have learned to dance with the quantum field rather than trying to control it. They've learned to be active participants while also being receptive channels. They've learned to intend without demanding, to create without forcing, to manifest without grasping. As our exploration tonight begins to spiral toward its close, let's consider the evolutionary implications of quantum manifestation. If consciousness really can influence reality through quantum processes, and if this ability can be developed and refined, what does this mean for the future of humanity? We might be in the early stages of developing what could be called quantum consciousness, the ability to consciously work with quantum processes to influence reality. Just as we've developed technological tools to extend our physical capabilities, we might be developing consciousness tools to extend our quantum capabilities. Meditation, visualization, intention, setting, energy work, all these practices that have been developed across cultures and centuries might be early technologies for quantum consciousness. As we understand the quantum principles behind these practices, we might be able to refine and enhance them, creating more effective methods for conscious participation in reality creation. The integration of quantum understanding with ancient wisdom traditions might be particularly powerful. These traditions have been experimenting with consciousness for millennia, developing sophisticated practices through trial and error. Now, with quantum mechanics providing a theoretical framework, we might be able to understand why these practices work and how to optimize them. Future generations might look back on our current understanding of manifestation the way we look back on early attempts at flight. We see the principles, we have some success, but we're still far from mastering the technology. Our children or grandchildren might have access to consciousness technologies we can barely imagine, ways of working with quantum fields that make our current practices seem primitive. But this evolution isn't just about gaining power or getting better at manifesting personal desires. It's about consciousness itself evolving, becoming more aware of its own nature and capabilities. As more humans develop quantum consciousness, humanity as a whole might undergo a phase transition, like water turning to steam, suddenly expressing new properties and capabilities. This collective evolution might be necessary for humanity's survival and thriving. The challenges we face, from climate change to social inequality to potential existential risks, might require quantum leaps in consciousness to solve. Traditional approaches based on force and control haven't worked. Perhaps what's needed is a quantum approach based on consciousness, coherence, and collective manifestation of the better outcomes. Imagine if millions or billions of humans could consciously align their intentions toward planetary healing, social harmony, and species evolution. The collective quantum effects might be powerful enough to shift probability fields on a global or even cosmic scale. Problems that seem intractable from a classical perspective might have quantum solutions we haven't yet imagined. This isn't utopian fantasy, but a logical extension of the principles we've been exploring. If individual consciousness can influence quantum fields, and if collective consciousness creates stronger effects, then coordinated global consciousness might be able to manifest outcomes that currently seem impossible. But this evolution requires not just understanding, but wisdom. The ability to influence reality through consciousness is a form of power, and power without wisdom can be destructive. As we develop quantum consciousness, we must also develop the ethical framework to use it responsibly. This might be why so many manifestation teachings emphasize spiritual development alongside technique. It's not just about becoming better at manifesting. It's about becoming the kind of being who can be trusted with the power of conscious reality creation. It's about aligning personal desires with universal good, individual will with cosmic wisdom. The journey of quantum manifestation, then, is ultimately a journey of consciousness evolution. Each time you practice manifesting, you're not just trying to get something you want. You're participating in the evolution of consciousness itself, adding your data to the cosmic experiment, contributing to humanity's collective learning about the nature of reality and our role in creating it. Your successes teach us what's possible. Your failures teach us about constraints and limitations. Your experiences, whatever they are, add to the sum total of human knowledge about consciousness and its relationship with the quantum field. You're a researcher in the greatest experiment ever conducted, the experiment of consciousness exploring its own creative potential. As we float here together in the quantum field of possibilities, connected through the mysterious medium of consciousness despite the physical distances between us, take a moment to appreciate the profound mystery we've been exploring. The idea that manifestation works backward, that the future influences the present through quantum channels, revolutionizes our understanding of causality, time, and the nature of reality itself. We've journeyed from the strange world of quantum particles that seem to know the future, through the observer effect that suggests consciousness plays a fundamental role in creating reality, to the possibility that our intentions and emotions might literally reshape the probability landscape of our lives. We've explored how retrocausality might mean your future self is actively guiding you toward your desires, how quantum entanglement might connect you with everything and everyone in ways that transcend space and time. We've considered how practices like meditation, visualization, and gratitude might be quantum technologies, ways of creating coherence in consciousness that influences probability fields. We've examined how love might be a fundamental force that creates quantum coherence, how faith might keep possibility waves from collapsing prematurely, how letting go might relieve observation pressure and allow manifestations to crystallize. We've delved into the collective dimensions of quantum manifestation, how group consciousness might create powerful field effects, how we're all participating in a collective creation of reality, whether we're aware of it or not. We've pondered the evolutionary implications, the possibility that humanity is developing quantum consciousness that might be necessary for our next phase of evolution. Through it all, we've maintained a balance between scientific rigor and speculative exploration, between skepticism and wonder, between the known and the mysterious, because that's where the most interesting discoveries happen, at the edge between what we understand and what we're just beginning to glimpse. The truth is, we don't know for certain if consciousness can influence reality through quantum processes. We don't know if the future really reaches back to influence the present. We don't know if our thoughts and emotions create ripples in the probability fields that shape our experiences. These ideas remain at the frontier of science and philosophy, disputed, debated, and evolving. But what we do know is that consciousness and quantum mechanics are both profound mysteries that challenge our common sense understanding of reality. We know that the universe is far stranger than classical physics suggested, full of phenomena like superposition, entanglement, and wave-particle duality that seem almost magical. We know that consciousness, despite being the most intimate aspect of our existence, remains largely unexplained by conventional science. The intersection of these two mysteries, consciousness and quantum mechanics, might be where the next great revelations about the nature of reality emerge. And by exploring quantum manifestation, by experimenting with consciousness as a creative force, by practicing the art of intentional reality creation, we're participating in this exploration. Whether quantum manifestation works exactly as we've described, or in ways we haven't yet imagined, the practice itself is transformative. When you clarify your intentions, align your emotions, notice synchronicities, and take inspired action, you're developing capabilities that serve you regardless of the underlying mechanism. You're becoming more conscious, more intentional, more aligned with your deepest desires and highest purposes. And perhaps that's the real magic, not that consciousness might influence quantum fields, though that would be remarkable enough, but that by exploring these possibilities we become more conscious. We wake up from the trance of mechanical existence and recognize ourselves as creative participants in an ongoing cosmic experiment. Every moment becomes an opportunity for conscious creation. Every thought becomes a vote for which reality we want to experience. Every emotion becomes a resonance that attracts corresponding experiences. Every action becomes a bridge between the quantum realm of possibility and the classical realm of actuality. Living with this awareness transforms ordinary existence into an extraordinary adventure. The mundane becomes magical when you recognize that you're constantly participating in the creation of reality. The simple act of imagining a desired future becomes a profound practice of reaching through time to guide yourself toward that future. Even challenges and obstacles take on new meaning when viewed through the quantum lens. That difficult situation might be preparing you for something better, developing qualities you'll need for your ultimate manifestation. That closed door might be protecting you from a probability path that wouldn't serve your highest good. That delay might be allowing perfect timing to emerge, orchestrating a more elegant solution than you could have planned. This doesn't mean bypassing genuine emotions or pretending everything is perfect. The full spectrum of human experience, including struggle, doubt, and disappointment, is part of the quantum journey. These experiences provide contrast, information, and growth that might be essential to the manifestation process. The key is to experience them consciously, to learn from them, and to maintain connection with your deeper intentions even through difficulty. As we prepare to complete our journey tonight, let's return once more to the central insight that manifestation might work backward through quantum retrocausality. This isn't just an abstract concept, but a practical key that might unlock new approaches to creating the life you desire. Instead of always pushing forward from present to future, trying to force outcomes through will and effort, consider that your desired future might already exist in the quantum field, reaching back to guide you toward it. Instead of seeing yourself as separate from your goals, struggling to achieve them, recognize that you and your achieved goals might already be quantumly entangled, connected through probability channels that transcend linear time. When you feel stuck or discouraged, remember that your future successful self might be sending you exactly the experiences you need to become who you need to be to inhabit that success. When synchronicities occur, recognize them as possible communications from your future, breadcrumbs on the quantum path to your desires. When you practice visualization and emotional alignment, know that you might be doing more than psychological preparation. You might be establishing quantum resonance with your desired future, strengthening the retrocausal influences that guide you toward it. When you let go and surrender, you might be allowing the natural flow of retrocausality to work without interference from your conscious mind's limited perspective. This quantum view of manifestation invites a profound shift in how we relate to time, causality, and our own creative power. We're not victims of circumstance, trapped by the past and uncertain about the future. We're quantum navigators, choosing which probability paths to follow through the infinite garden of forking timelines. The future isn't fixed, waiting to happen to us. It's fluid, responsive, actively participating in creating itself through its influence on the present, and we're not passive observers of this process. We're conscious participants, co-creators, artists, painting on the quantum canvas of possibility. Your life, in this view, becomes a collaboration between your past self, who provides the materials, your present self, who makes the choices, and your future self, who provides the vision. All three exist simultaneously in the quantum field. All three influence each other. All three are equally real and equally you. This temporal unity, this recognition that past, present, and future you're all connected through quantum channels, might be one of the most healing insights from our exploration. You're not alone in your journey. You're supported by all the versions of yourself across time, each contributing to the whole, each playing their part in the grand experiment of your existence. The child you were, with their wonder and openness, still exists in the quantum field, contributing innocence and possibility to your present. The elder you will become, with their wisdom and perspective, already exists in the quantum field, contributing guidance and assurance that everything works out. And here you are in the eternal now, the meeting point where all these versions converge, the conscious observer who collapses the infinite possibilities into the one experienced life. What a profound privilege it is to be conscious at this moment in cosmic history, when science and spirituality are beginning to converge, when the mechanics of manifestation are beginning to be understood, when humanity is possibly on the verge of a quantum leap in consciousness. You're not just living your individual life, you're participating in a species-wide evolution of awareness. Every time you successfully manifest through conscious intention, you're adding evidence that consciousness is creative. Every time you experience a synchronicity, you're demonstrating that reality is more interconnected than it appears. Every time you choose love over fear, coherence over chaos, and tension over accident, you're contributing to the field of human consciousness that we all share. Future generations might look back on this time as when humanity began to consciously evolve, when we started to understand and work with the quantum nature of consciousness, when we began to take responsibility for our role in creating reality. And you're part of this. Your experiments with manifestation, successful or not, are part of the data that will help humanity understand its true capabilities. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, or as you return to your day if you're listening at another time, carry with you this sense of being part of something magnificent. You're not just trying to manifest your personal desires, you're participating in the universe's exploration of its own creative potential. You're a quantum artist, a consciousness pioneer, a time-traveling navigator of possibility. And remember, according to the principles we've explored, your future self, the one who has already successfully manifested your deepest desires, is reaching back through time right now, sending you guidance, creating synchronicities, arranging circumstances to help you become them. All you need to do is stay open, stay aligned, and trust the process. The quantum field is responding to your consciousness right now. Probability waves are shifting based on your thoughts and feelings. The future is reorganizing itself around your intentions. The universe is conspiring through perfectly natural quantum processes to support your evolution and manifestation. What an extraordinary time to be alive. What an amazing capability we're discovering. What a profound responsibility and opportunity we have to consciously participate in the creation of reality. In the stillness of night, when the world softens and slows, when the harsh edges of classical reality blur into quantum possibility, remember that beneath the apparently solid surface of things, everything is dancing. Particles are popping in and out of existence. Waves are interfering constructively and destructively. Consciousness is collapsing possibilities into actualities, and through it all, the future is reaching back to touch the present, guide it, shape it, love it into being. You might think you're lying still, but you're actually traveling at tremendous speed through space-time. You might think you're separate, but you're actually entangled with everything. You might think you're stuck, but you're actually navigating through infinite possibilities. You might think you're alone, but you're actually supported by all versions of yourself across time and space. The stillness is only an illusion. Beneath it, the quantum field is alive with potential, responsive to consciousness, creative beyond imagination. And you're part of it all, not a separate observer but an integral thread in the cosmic tapestry, a unique and essential note in the universal symphony, a conscious co-creator in the greatest story ever told, the story of existence itself. Thank you so much for joining me on this gentle journey through the looking glass of quantum reality. Thank you for bringing your consciousness to these ideas, for adding your thread to our collective exploration. Your attention, your intention, your participation, it all matters more than you might imagine. If this exploration of quantum manifestation and reverse causality has sparked new thoughts or possibilities in your mind, if it's helped you see your creative power in a new light, I'd be truly grateful if you'd leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and your engagement helps these ideas reach other curious souls who might be ready to explore the quantum nature of consciousness. And do share in the comments where you listened from tonight and what time it was in your corner of our quantum entangled world. I find it endlessly fascinating to imagine our collective constellation of consciousness, each of us in our own present moment yet connected through these ideas across space and time. Remember to be gentle with yourself as you explore these possibilities. Quantum manifestation isn't about perfection or forcing outcomes. It's about conscious participation in the creative dance of existence. Every step, every stumble, every success, it's all part of the learning, all part of the journey, all part of the magnificent experiment of consciousness discovering its own nature. May your dreams be filled with quantum possibilities. May your sleep be deep and restorative. May you wake refreshed and ready to consciously create another day of your extraordinary life. And may you always remember that your future self is reaching back through time, cheering you on, guiding you home, loving you into becoming everything you're meant to be. This video, as always, has been for relaxation and education. It is not medical advice or a substitute for professional care. If you're dealing with serious life challenges, please reach out to appropriate professionals who can provide the support you need. Always look after yourself with the same care and intention you bring to your manifestations. Sweet dreams, dear quantum navigators. May your probability waves collapse in the most beautiful ways. May your intentions ripple through the field of possibility and return to you magnified. May you rest peacefully knowing that the universe is not only stranger than you imagine, but more responsive to your consciousness than you've dared to dream. Until we meet again in this timeless space where science meets wonder, where physics meets philosophy, where the rigor of equations meets the mystery of awareness, sleep well, dream deep. And remember, you're not just in the universe. You are the universe, conscious of itself, exploring itself, creating itself anew in each eternal moment. Let's start with the basics. You've probably heard about manifestation, that curious idea that our thoughts and intentions can somehow influence reality in ways that seem to defy conventional cause and effect. Perhaps you've tried it yourself, setting clear goals, visualizing outcomes, maintaining positive thoughts, only to find that sometimes it works in ways that feel almost magical, and other times it seems to accomplish absolutely nothing at all. The whole concept sits uncomfortably between wishful thinking and genuine mystery, leaving many people wondering whether there's any real substance beneath the surface of what often sounds like elaborate positive thinking. But hold that thought gently because, as it turns out, even something as controversial as manifestation might have roots in some of the most profound and well-established principles of quantum physics. Not in the oversimplified way that many popular books suggest, but in subtle, sophisticated ways that reveal how the very nature of reality at its most fundamental level operates according to principles that seem to mirror what manifestation practitioners have been describing for centuries. The traditional approach to making things happen in your life follows what we might call classical physics thinking. You identify what you want, you break it down into logical steps, you take action in a linear sequence, and you measure your progress along the way. It's the same mechanistic approach that works beautifully for building a house or planning a vacation. You start with a blueprint, gather materials, follow the construction sequence, and eventually you have a finished product, cause leads to effect in a predictable, measurable chain. This classical approach assumes that the future is essentially a logical extension of the present, shaped by the actions you take and the efforts you make. If you want to lose weight, you calculate the calories, design the exercise program, and execute the plan. If you want to start a business, you write the business plan, secure the funding, and launch according to schedule. The universe is seen as a kind of vast machine where pulling the right levers in the right sequence produces the desired results. Yet quantum mechanics reveals that at the most fundamental level of reality, this mechanical view simply doesn't hold. In the quantum realm, particles don't have definite positions or velocities until they're measured. Events don't follow strict causal sequences. The act of observation itself influences what's being observed. Particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until something forces them to choose a specific state. And perhaps most mysteriously, particles can be instantly connected across vast distances in ways that Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance. These aren't just abstract theoretical principles confined to laboratory experiments with subatomic particles. These quantum effects scale up into the world we experience every day, though they become harder to notice amid the apparent solidity of classical reality. Your brain, after all, is fundamentally a quantum system, with neural processes that depend on quantum effects in microtubules and synaptic networks. Your consciousness itself might be a quantum phenomenon, emerging from the complex orchestration of quantum processes throughout your nervous system. So what happens when we apply quantum principles to the process of creating desired changes in our lives? What happens when we acknowledge that the future isn't simply a logical extension of the present, but exists in a kind of superposition of possibilities until something causes it to collapse into a specific reality? This is where traditional goal setting begins to reveal its limitations, and where a more quantum approach to manifestation starts to make sense. Think about the last time you set a really important goal for yourself. Maybe it was finding a new job, improving a relationship, or achieving some creative project. If you followed conventional wisdom, you probably started by getting very specific about exactly what you wanted. You wrote it down, made it measurable, set a deadline, created action steps. You tried to visualize the end result in detail, perhaps even creating vision boards or detailed written descriptions of your desired outcome. But here's where things get interesting from a quantum perspective. In quantum mechanics, The very act of trying to measure or pin down a system changes the system itself. This is the famous measurement problem, where the attempt to observe a quantum system forces it to collapse from a state of multiple possibilities into a single definite state. The more precisely you try to measure certain properties, the more you disturb other properties. Could it be that the traditional approach to goal setting, with its emphasis on specificity and measurement, actually interferes with the quantum processes that might naturally bring about the changes we desire? When we get too specific about exactly how our goal should manifest, when we create rigid timelines and detailed action plans, when we constantly measure our progress against predetermined benchmarks, we might be collapsing the quantum field of possibilities too early, forcing outcomes that are limited by our current understanding rather than allowing space for possibilities we haven't even imagined yet. This doesn't mean that intention and focus aren't important. In quantum mechanics, the observer plays a crucial role in determining which possibility becomes reality. But the nature of that observation is more subtle than simply deciding what we want and then pushing toward it. It's more like maintaining a coherent field of possibility while remaining open to how that possibility might manifest in ways we couldn't have predicted. Let's delve deeper into this measurement problem as it applies to personal transformation. In traditional goal setting, we're encouraged to track everything. Steps taken, calories consumed, dollars saved, pages written, pounds lost. The idea is that what gets measured gets managed, and that regular monitoring of our progress helps us stay on track toward our objectives. But quantum mechanics suggests that measurement isn't the neutral objective process we assume it to be. Every measurement is an interaction that changes both the observer and the observed. When you step on the scale every morning while trying to lose weight, you're not just gathering information. You're participating in a quantum interaction that influences both your psychological state and potentially even your metabolic processes. Consider what happens on a morning when the scale shows a number you don't like. That measurement instantly collapses your field of possibilities from the quantum superposition of potential progress into a specific reality that might trigger disappointment, self-criticism, or the kind of emotional state that actually makes it harder for your body to release weight. The very act of measuring has influenced the system you're trying to change. This is why so many people report better results when they focus less on tracking specific metrics and more on maintaining the feeling state or identity that aligns with their desired outcome. When you operate from the feeling of already being the person who naturally maintains your ideal weight, you're working with quantum coherence rather than against it. You're allowing the field of possibilities to remain open while maintaining a clear but flexible intention about the general direction of change. The same principle applies to any kind of transformation. The entrepreneur who constantly checks their bank account balance might be collapsing the field of financial possibilities into the current reality of limitation. The artist who measures their progress by counting words or paintings completed might be interfering with the creative flow that could produce something far beyond their current expectations. The person seeking love who analyzes every interaction for signs of romantic potential might be preventing the kind of authentic connection that would naturally lead to the relationship they desire. This doesn't mean we should never pay attention to results or completely abandon all forms of measurement, but it suggests that we need a more sophisticated understanding of when and how to measure, and what kind of measurement actually supports the quantum processes of change rather than interfering with them. In quantum coherence, all the parts of a system are synchronized, vibrating in harmony with each other rather than working at cross purposes. When a quantum system achieves coherence, it can accomplish things that seem impossible from a classical physics perspective. Lasers work because of quantum coherence, allowing light particles to organize themselves into a focused beam that can travel great distances without scattering. Superconductors work because of quantum coherence, allowing electrical current to flow without resistance. Could it be that successful manifestation requires a similar kind of coherence between our thoughts, emotions, actions, and unconscious patterns? Not the forced coherence of trying to think positive thoughts while feeling frustrated underneath, but the natural coherence that emerges when all aspects of our being are aligned with the same fundamental frequency or intention. Most people approach goal achievement by trying to force coherence through willpower and discipline. They use their conscious mind to override conflicting impulses, to push through resistance, to maintain motivation even when they don't feel like taking action. It's the same approach you might use to force two magnets together when their poles are repelling each other. You can do it, but it requires constant effort and energy, and the moment you stop applying force, the magnets spring apart again. Quantum coherence operates on a completely different principle. Instead of forcing alignment through effort, you create the conditions where alignment happens naturally. You tune into the fundamental frequency of your desired outcome and allow all the different aspects of your being to gradually synchronize with that frequency, the way tuning forks will naturally come into resonance when placed near each other. This kind of coherence isn't achieved through mental techniques or emotional manipulation. It emerges from a deeper place of authenticity, where your desire for change comes not from a sense of inadequacy or dissatisfaction with what is, but from a genuine excitement about exploring new possibilities. When you operate from this place, your thoughts, emotions, and actions naturally align because they're all expressing the same essential movement toward growth and expansion. Think about a time in your life when things seemed to flow effortlessly in the direction you wanted. Maybe it was falling in love, or discovering a creative passion, or finding work that felt meaningful. Chances are you weren't trying to force anything to happen. You were simply being yourself fully, following your genuine interests and attractions, and opportunities seem to open up naturally in response to that authenticity. That's what quantum coherence feels like in the realm of personal manifestation. Instead of swimming upstream against the current of your natural inclinations, you find the current that's already flowing in the direction you want to go, and you allow it to carry you forward. You discover that the changes you want to make aren't separate from who you already are, but are actually expressions of potentials that have been waiting for the right conditions to emerge. This brings us to one of the most fascinating aspects of quantum mechanics and its relationship to manifestation, the phenomenon of non-local influence. In classical physics, things can only influence each other through direct contact or through fields that travel at the speed of light or slower. If you want to influence something on the other side of the room, you have to send some kind of signal or force that travels through space to reach it. But quantum mechanics reveals that particles can be instantly connected across any distance through what's called quantum entanglement. When two particles become entangled, measuring one particle instantly affects the other, regardless of how far apart they are. This doesn't require any signal traveling between them. It's as if they remain part of a single system even when separated by vast distances. Could it be that your current self and your future self are quantum entangled in a similar way? That the version of you who has already achieved what you're working toward exists in some sense, and can influence your present circumstances and choices through non-local quantum connections? This isn't as mystical as it might sound. In the block universe model that emerges from Einstein's relativity, all moments in time exist simultaneously. Your future self isn't something that doesn't exist yet, it's something that exists in a different part of space-time than where you currently are. If consciousness can navigate space-time in ways that transcend our ordinary experience of linear time, then your future self might indeed be able to influence your present choices and circumstances. Many people report experiences that seem to confirm this possibility. They describe having a clear sense of being guided towards certain choices or opportunities, as if some wiser version of themselves was sending back information about which paths lead to the outcomes they desire. They talk about intuitive hunches that turn out to be exactly right, or about being in the right place at the right time in ways that feel too synchronistic to be mere coincidence. From a quantum perspective, these experiences might be evidence of non-local connections between different versions of yourself across time. Your future self, having already navigated the path from here to there, might be able to influence your present self through quantum entanglement, helping you make choices that align with the timeline where you achieve your desired outcomes. This doesn't mean you're passive in the process, or that your future is predetermined. It means you're participating in a dynamic, interactive relationship with the field of possibilities that includes versions of yourself who have explored different potential futures. The choices you make in the present influence which future self you become entangled with, and that future self influences the opportunities and insights available to you right now. Working with this principle means learning to listen for the subtle guidance that's always available, the gentle nudges toward choices that align with your highest potential. It means paying attention to the patterns of synchronicity that seem to support certain directions and redirect you away from others. It means trusting the part of yourself that knows things your logical mind hasn't figured out yet, and allowing that deeper wisdom to guide your actions even when you can't see the full picture. But here's where the quantum nature of manifestation becomes even more intriguing. In quantum mechanics, particles can exist in what's called superposition, occupying multiple states simultaneously until something forces them to collapse into a single definite state. An electron can be spinning both clockwise and counterclockwise at the same time. A photon can be traveling through multiple paths simultaneously until it reaches a detector that forces it to choose a specific path. Could it be that the most effective approach to manifestation involves learning to hold multiple potential realities in superposition, rather than collapsing too quickly into one specific outcome? Instead of deciding exactly what you want and then pushing single-mindedly toward that goal, you might achieve better results by remaining open to several possible outcomes simultaneously, allowing the universe to choose the one that serves your highest good in ways you might not be able to anticipate. This requires a different kind of mental flexibility than most of us are used to. We're trained to make decisions, to commit to specific goals, to choose one path and stick with it. But quantum superposition suggests that there might be power in remaining indefinite for longer than feels comfortable, in holding space for multiple possibilities without forcing a premature collapse into certainty. Think about it this way. When you set a very specific goal, like earning exactly $85,000 by the end of the year, you're essentially collapsing the infinite field of financial possibilities into one narrow outcome. But what if the universe had opportunities available for you to earn $120,000? Or what if there were non-monetary forms of abundance that would serve you even better than the specific dollar amount you chose? By remaining too attached to your specific goal, you might be excluding possibilities that would exceed your expectations in ways you couldn't have imagined. Instead of collapsing into specificity too early, you could hold the general intention of increasing financial abundance while remaining open to how that might manifest. You could maintain the feeling state of financial security and freedom without being attached to exactly how much money that requires or exactly how it arrives. This doesn't mean being vague or uncommitted about what you want. It means being clear about the essence of what you're seeking while remaining flexible about the form it takes. If what you really want is the feeling of security and freedom that you associate with more money, then you stay focused on cultivating that feeling while remaining open to all the different ways the universe might provide experiences that generate those feelings. Maybe the abundance comes in the form of money, but maybe it comes in the form of opportunities that reduce your expenses while increasing your satisfaction. Maybe it comes through relationships that provide support and connection in ways that make you feel more secure than any amount of money could. Maybe it comes through discovering gifts and talents you didn't know you had, opening up possibilities for contribution and fulfillment that transform your entire relationship with work and value. By holding multiple realities in superposition, you're working with the quantum field rather than against it. You're allowing the universe to surprise you with solutions that might be far more elegant and satisfying than anything your limited perspective could have designed. This brings us to one of the most profound aspects of quantum manifestation, the role of emotional alignment in creating and maintaining quantum coherence. In traditional goal setting, emotions are often seen as either helpful motivation or problematic obstacles to overcome. You try to generate positive emotions to fuel your efforts, and you try to manage negative emotions that might interfere with your progress. But from a quantum perspective, emotions aren't just psychological experiences that help or hinder your goal achievement. They're fundamental frequencies that determine which quantum possibilities you're resonating with, and therefore which realities you're most likely to collapse into through your observations and interactions. Every emotion carries a specific vibrational signature, a pattern of energy that attracts similar patterns from the quantum field. When you consistently operate from emotions like gratitude, excitement, love, and appreciation, you're creating coherence with quantum possibilities that match those frequencies. When you operate from emotions like fear, resentment, desperation, and frustration, you're creating coherence with quantum possibilities that match those lower frequencies. This isn't about positive thinking or trying to force yourself to feel good when you don't. It's about understanding that emotions are information about which quantum states you're currently aligned with. and learning to shift your emotional frequency as a way of tuning into different possibilities. The key is learning to feel the emotions of your desired outcome before it manifests in physical reality. If you want to experience greater financial abundance, you practice feeling genuinely grateful for the abundance that's already present in your life, and you cultivate the emotional state of someone who feels secure and free in their relationship with money. If you want to experience love, you practice feeling lovable and loving right now, regardless of your current relationship status. This isn't about pretending or fantasizing. It's about recognizing that the emotions you're seeking are actually available to you right now, independent of external circumstances. Financial security isn't a feeling that only comes from having a certain amount of money in the bank. It's a felt sense of trust in your ability to handle whatever comes, and appreciation for what you already have. Love isn't a feeling that only comes from being in a romantic relationship. It's a fundamental attitude of openness and appreciation that you can cultivate in any moment. When you learn to access these emotional frequencies authentically, you're not just improving your mood or practicing positive psychology. You're actually tuning your quantum coherence to match the vibrational signature of your desired outcomes, making it much more likely that opportunities and circumstances that match those outcomes will begin appearing in your experience. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Quantum mechanics reveals that the boundary between observer and observed is much more fluid than classical physics suggests. In quantum field theory, particles aren't separate objects interacting with each other across empty space. They're excitations in interconnected fields that pervade all of reality. What we experience as separate things are actually different patterns of vibration in a unified field of possibility. If this is true at the most fundamental level of physical reality, then it's also true for the process of manifestation. You're not a separate individual trying to manipulate an external universe to give you what you want. You're a pattern of consciousness within a unified field of possibility, and your thoughts, emotions, and intentions are constantly interacting with all the other patterns in that field. From this perspective, manifestation isn't about getting the universe to do something for you. It's about aligning your personal pattern of consciousness with the patterns in the universal field that correspond to your desired experiences. It's about recognizing that you and your circumstances aren't separate things, but different aspects of a single dynamic, evolving system. This understanding transforms the entire approach to creating change in your life. Instead of trying to force external circumstances to match your internal desires, you focus on becoming the type of pattern that naturally generates the experiences you want to have. Instead of seeing obstacles and delays as problems to overcome, you recognize them as information about where your personal pattern might not yet be fully aligned with your desired outcomes. When you operate from this understanding, setbacks become fascinating rather than frustrating. If an opportunity falls through or a relationship doesn't work out the way you hoped, instead of seeing it as evidence that manifestation doesn't work, you recognize it as valuable feedback about the quantum coherence of your system. Something in your pattern of thoughts, emotions, beliefs, or actions wasn't quite aligned with the outcome you thought you wanted, and the universe is showing you that misalignment so you can refine your approach. This makes the whole process much more collaborative and much less effortful. Instead of trying to push the river of reality in the direction you think it should flow, you learn to read the current patterns and find the most harmonious way to move with them toward outcomes that serve both your individual evolution and the larger evolutionary movement of the whole system. Let's take a closer look at how this plays out in practical terms. Imagine you're working on manifesting a new career that feels more aligned with your passions and values. The traditional approach would be to decide exactly what job you want, research companies that might hire you, update your resume, apply for positions, and network with people in your desired field. All of these actions might be part of a quantum approach as well, but they would emerge from a very different internal process. Instead of starting with a mental analysis of what kind of career would be logical based on your skills and the current job market, you would start by tuning into the feeling frequency of work that truly excites and fulfills you. You would spend time imagining yourself in work environments where you feel energized and appreciated, not trying to figure out what specific job that might be, but simply allowing yourself to feel what that kind of fulfillment would be like in your body. You would notice what kinds of activities naturally draw your attention and interest. What kinds of problems you find yourself thinking about even when you don't have to? What kinds of conversations light you up with enthusiasm? From this emotional and energetic exploration, you would begin to get a sense of the general direction that feels most alive for you. But you would hold that direction lightly, as a preference rather than a rigid requirement. You would take actions that feel inspired and natural, following genuine curiosity and attraction rather than forcing yourself to do things that feel like logical steps but don't generate any real enthusiasm. As you maintain this approach, you would start to notice patterns of synchronicity, conversations with friends that happen to mention opportunities you hadn't heard of, articles or videos that show up in your social media feed with information that feels relevant to your emerging interests, chance encounters with people who work in fields you've been curious about. Instead of dismissing these as mere coincidences, you would recognize them as evidence of the quantum field responding to your coherent intention. You would follow up on the ones that feel genuinely interesting, not because you're trying to force them to lead somewhere specific, but because you're curious to see what they might reveal about the possibilities available to you. This process might lead you to opportunities you never would have found through conventional job searching. It might reveal talents and interests you didn't know you had. It might connect you with people who become not just professional contacts, but genuine friends and collaborators. Most importantly, it would likely lead to work that feels like a natural extension of who you are rather than something you have to force yourself to do. The same principles apply to any area of life where you want to create change. Whether you're looking for love, trying to improve your health, wanting to develop creative skills, or hoping to make a positive impact in your community, the quantum approach involves tuning into the feeling frequency of your desired outcome and then following the natural impulses and attractions that arise from that state of being. But let's examine one of the most challenging aspects of applying quantum principles to manifestation, the question of time and timing. Classical goal setting operates on linear time, with clear deadlines and step-by-step progressions from point A to point B. You set a goal, create a timeline, track your progress, and either achieve your objective by the deadline or you don't. Quantum manifestation operates on what we might call quantum time, where the usual rules of cause and effect become much more fluid. In quantum mechanics, effects can sometimes precede their causes, information can travel backward through time, and events that are separated in space and time can influence each other instantaneously. This means that the manifestation of your desired outcome might not follow the logical timeline you expect. Sometimes things that seem like delays or detours are actually part of a larger pattern that's organizing itself in ways your linear mind can't perceive. Sometimes you have to become someone different before you can experience what you want, and that internal transformation takes whatever time it takes. The key is learning to trust quantum timing rather than forcing classical timing. This doesn't mean becoming passive or abandoning all sense of urgency about creating positive change in your life. It means recognizing that there's an intelligence operating in the manifestation process that has access to information and possibilities that your conscious mind doesn't have. When you're aligned with quantum timing, you'll find yourself taking inspired action that feels natural and energizing, but you won't be attached to exactly when or how your desired outcomes manifest. You'll be more interested in enjoying the process of growth and discovery than in reaching some predetermined destination by a specific date. This requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to uncertainty and the unknown. Instead of seeing uncertainty as a problem to solve or a source of anxiety to manage, you begin to recognize it as the creative space where new possibilities are born. Instead of trying to control every variable and predict every outcome, you learn to dance with the mystery of a universe that's far more creative and generous than your logical mind could ever imagine. The implications of this approach extend far beyond personal goal achievement. If consciousness and matter are as intimately connected as quantum mechanics suggests, then the way we approach manifestation in our individual lives affects the collective field of human consciousness and the evolution of our species as a whole. When you operate from quantum coherence rather than classical force, you're contributing to a more harmonious and sustainable way of creating change in the world. When you trust the intelligence of the manifestation process rather than trying to manipulate outcomes through willpower and control, you're modeling a way of being that honors both individual desires and collective well-being. This is particularly relevant as our species faces challenges that require new forms of cooperation and creativity. Climate change, social inequality, technological disruption, and the other complex problems of our time won't be solved through classical approaches alone. They require the kind of quantum thinking that recognizes the interconnectedness of all systems and works with natural patterns rather than against them. Every person who learns to manifest from quantum coherence is contributing to a larger shift in human consciousness, a movement toward ways of creating and problem-solving that are more aligned with the fundamental nature of reality itself. Your personal practice of quantum manifestation is both an individual path of growth and a contribution to the collective evolution of how our species relates to the creative power of consciousness. As we delve deeper into these quantum principles, it becomes clear that manifestation isn't really about getting what you want as much as it's about discovering who you really are and what you're truly capable of becoming. The process of aligning with quantum coherence reveals capacities and potentials that were always present but perhaps not fully activated. When you stop trying to force reality to match your limited expectations and start collaborating with the infinite creativity of the quantum field, you often find that what manifests exceeds anything you could have imagined on your own. The universe seems to have a way of providing not just what you think you want, but what you actually need for your highest growth and greatest contribution. This is why so many people who have worked with these principles for a while report that their original goals often seem small in retrospect. What they thought would make them happy becomes a stepping stone to possibilities they couldn't have conceived when they started. The relationship they thought they wanted becomes the foundation for a life purpose they never knew they had. The financial abundance they were seeking becomes the means to contribute to causes that fill them with meaning and fulfillment. The quantum approach to manifestation is ultimately about aligning with the evolutionary impulse of consciousness itself, the fundamental drive toward greater complexity, creativity, and connection that seems to be built into the very fabric of reality. When you tune into this impulse and allow it to express itself through your individual life, you become a unique and irreplaceable contribution to the ongoing creation of the universe. Now let's explore one of the most subtle but powerful aspects of quantum manifestation, the role of what we might call quantum awareness in the manifestation process. In classical consciousness, you're either aware of something or you're not. Attention operates like a spotlight, illuminating one thing at a time while leaving everything else in darkness. But quantum consciousness operates more like a field, capable of maintaining awareness of multiple possibilities simultaneously, without collapsing them into definite states. This kind of awareness can hold paradox and ambiguity without needing to resolve them immediately. It can sense patterns and connections that aren't yet visible to logical analysis. Developing quantum awareness is essential for effective manifestation because it allows you to perceive the subtle signs and synchronicities that indicate when you're in alignment with your desired outcomes. It helps you sense when to take action and when to wait, when to push forward and when to allow, when to be specific about what you want and when to remain open to unexpected possibilities. This awareness develops through what we might call quantum meditation, practices that train your consciousness to operate more like a quantum field and less like a classical computer. Instead of trying to focus your attention on one thing and exclude everything else, you practice maintaining a soft, open awareness that can hold multiple streams of information simultaneously. One simple practice involves sitting quietly and allowing your awareness to expand, to include everything in your environment without trying to focus on any particular thing. You're aware of sounds both near and far, sensations in your body, thoughts and emotions arising and passing away, the quality of light and air around you. You're not analyzing or categorizing any of these experiences, just maintaining a spacious, receptive awareness that includes everything without grasping anything. As you develop this kind of awareness, you begin to notice subtleties that you missed when your attention was more focused and goal-oriented. You might sense the emotional undercurrents in conversations that weren't apparent before. You might notice patterns in your environment that seem to be responding to your internal states. You might become aware of impulses and attractions that feel like guidance from a deeper level of intelligence. This expanded awareness becomes particularly important when you're working with manifestation, because it allows you to perceive the quantum field of possibilities that surrounds every situation. Instead of seeing only the obvious options that your logical mind can identify, you begin to sense potentials that haven't yet crystallized into concrete opportunities. For example, if you're looking for new work, quantum awareness might help you sense that a casual conversation with a neighbor could lead to unexpected opportunities, even though there's no logical reason to think so. If you're hoping to improve your health, it might draw your attention to information or practitioners that wouldn't show up in a conventional internet search, but turn out to be exactly what you need. The more you develop this quantum awareness, the more you realize that the manifestation process is always operating around you. Opportunities are constantly arising and dissolving, connections are always being offered, and the universe is continuously presenting you with exactly the experiences you need for your growth and evolution. The challenge isn't making manifestation happen, it's developing the sensitivity to perceive and respond to the manifestation that's always already happening. This leads us to perhaps the most radical insight that emerges from applying quantum principles to manifestation. The process isn't really about creating something new or different in your life. It's about becoming conscious of potentials that already exist in the quantum field and learning to collapse them into manifest reality through the quality of your awareness and intention. From this perspective, everything you could ever want to experience already exists as a potential in the quantum field of infinite possibilities. Your role isn't to create these potentials from scratch, but to become the kind of consciousness that can perceive and actualize them. The abundant life you want already exists. The loving relationship you desire already exists. The meaningful work you're seeking already exists. They exist as quantum potentials waiting for the right conditions to collapse into your experiential reality. This understanding transforms manifestation from a process of trying to make something happen to a process of learning to recognize and actualize what's already available. It shifts the focus from doing to being, from effort to alignment, from forcing to allowing. Instead of asking, how can I make this happen? You start asking, how can I become the kind of person who naturally experiences this? The answer to that question always involves some form of internal transformation. To experience greater abundance, you have to release the internal patterns that create and maintain experiences of scarcity. To experience love, you have to dissolve the barriers that prevent you from recognizing the love that's already present. To experience creative fulfillment, you have to clear away the beliefs and fears that keep you from expressing your authentic gifts. This internal work isn't separate from the manifestation process. It is the manifestation process. Every limiting belief you release, every emotional pattern you heal, every aspect of your character that you develop creates more space for positive potentials to actualize in your experience. The outer transformation is always a reflection of inner transformation. But here's what makes this quantum understanding so different from traditional personal development approaches. The inner work isn't about fixing what's wrong with you or becoming someone different than who you are. It's about removing the obstacles that prevent you from experiencing the fullness of what you already are at the deepest level. At your quantum essence, you're already whole, already abundant, already connected to infinite love and creativity. The limitations and problems you experience aren't fundamental flaws in your nature. They're temporary distortions in your energy field that can be corrected through understanding and practice. You're not trying to become someone better. You're remembering who you really are beneath all the conditioning and confusion. This realization can be both liberating and challenging. It's liberating because it means you don't have to fix yourself or achieve anything external to experience the fulfillment you're seeking. It's challenging because it requires you to take responsibility for your experience in ways that your ego mind often resists. If everything you experience is a reflection of your quantum state of consciousness, then you can't blame external circumstances for your limitations or wait for conditions to change before you start experiencing what you want. You have to be willing to own your power to influence your reality through the quality of your awareness and the coherence of your internal alignment. This doesn't mean that you're responsible for everything that happens to you in a simplistic cause and effect way. The relationship between consciousness and manifestation is much more subtle and complex than that. It means that you always have the power to choose how you respond to whatever arises, and that choice influences what becomes possible in your future experience. Let's explore how this understanding applies to one of the most common challenges people face when working with manifestation principles: the experience of apparent resistance or delay in seeing results. From a classical perspective, if you're doing everything right, setting clear goals, maintaining positive thoughts, taking appropriate action, and nothing seems to be happening, it's natural to conclude that either manifestation doesn't work or you're doing something wrong. But from a quantum perspective, apparent resistance or delay often indicates that the system is organizing itself for a more significant transformation than you initially requested. Sometimes, what looks like nothing happening is actually evidence that changes are occurring at such a deep level that they haven't yet become visible in your external circumstances. Quantum systems can exist in states of increasing complexity and instability before they suddenly reorganize themselves into a completely new pattern. This is called a phase transition, and it often appears chaotic and unpredictable from within the system while it's happening, even though it's actually following precise mathematical laws. The same process happens in personal transformation. Sometimes you're working with manifestation principles and it feels like you're getting nowhere, but actually your entire psychological and energetic structure is reorganizing itself to accommodate the changes you've requested. This reorganization has to happen from the inside out, often involving the release of old patterns and beliefs that no longer serve your growth. During these periods of apparent delay, the most important thing is to maintain your practice and trust the process, even when you can't see evidence of progress. This is when many people give up, concluding that manifestation doesn't work for them or that they're not doing it right. But often they're actually on the verge of a breakthrough that would have manifested if they had maintained this alignment just a little longer. The key is learning to recognize the signs that indicate a phase transition is in progress. You might notice that old patterns and relationships that no longer serve your growth start falling away naturally. You might experience periods of confusion or restlessness as your identity reorganizes itself around new possibilities. You might find yourself losing interest in activities that used to engage you, or becoming attracted to new ideas and experiences that feel unfamiliar but exciting. These experiences aren't signs that something is going wrong. They're signs that the quantum field is preparing to deliver something that exceeds your original request. The universe often has to clear away obstacles and limitations you weren't even aware of before it can provide experiences that match your highest potentials. This is why it's so important to maintain what we might call quantum patience during the manifestation process. Quantum patience isn't passive waiting, it's active trust in the intelligence of the process combined with continued alignment with your desired outcomes. You keep doing the inner work, maintaining the emotional frequency of what you want to experience, and taking inspired action when opportunities arise, but you release attachment to exactly when or how your manifestation will appear. This kind of patience becomes easier when you understand that from a quantum perspective, time isn't the linear progression it appears to be in ordinary consciousness. In the quantum realm, past, present, and future exist simultaneously, and what we experience as sequence is actually the unfolding of patterns that already exist in their complete form outside of time. Your desired outcome already exists in what physicists call the block universe, the four-dimensional space-time structure where all moments exist eternally. The process of manifestation is really the process of aligning your consciousness with the timeline where the outcome is already real, and then allowing your experience to shift into alignment with that reality. This might sound abstract, but you've probably experienced glimpses of this phenomenon without realizing it. Have you ever had the experience of suddenly knowing something before it happened? Or feeling like you were remembering the future rather than imagining it? Have you ever felt guided to make choices that didn't make logical sense at the time, but turned out to be exactly right in retrospect? These experiences suggest that your consciousness isn't as bound by linear time as your rational mind assumes. Some part of you has access to information from future timelines and can guide your present choices in directions that align with outcomes you desire. Learning to trust and follow this guidance is a crucial skill in quantum manifestation. The challenge is that this guidance often comes through subtle channels that are easily overridden by the louder voice of logical analysis. It might arrive as a gentle impulse to take a different route to work, or a sudden interest in a topic you've never explored before, or an intuitive sense that you should reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in years. Your logical mind will often dismiss these impulses as random or irrelevant, but they might actually be communications from future versions of yourself who are already living the outcomes you're working toward. They know which choices lead to the experiences you desire, and they're constantly sending back subtle guidance to help you navigate toward those possibilities. Learning to perceive and follow this guidance requires developing what we might call quantum intuition, a form of knowing that operates beyond the boundaries of logical analysis. This isn't about abandoning rationality or making impulsive decisions, but about integrating intuitive intelligence with rational intelligence to make choices that serve both your practical needs and your evolutionary growth. Quantum intuition develops through practice and attention. The more you notice subtle impulses and experiment with following them, the more refined and reliable this guidance becomes. You start to recognize the difference between genuine intuitive guidance and projections from your ego or unconscious patterns. You learn to distinguish between the voice of fear that tries to keep you safe by avoiding risks and the voice of wisdom that encourages you to grow by embracing appropriate challenges. As this intuitive capacity develops, the manifestation process becomes much more graceful and efficient. Instead of struggling to figure out the right actions to take or forcing yourself to maintain motivation when you don't feel inspired, you simply follow the guidance that's continuously available from your deeper intelligence. Actions arise naturally from alignment rather than being imposed by willpower. This brings us to one of the most practical aspects of quantum manifestation, the question of how to maintain alignment and coherence in the midst of daily life with all its demands, distractions, and apparent limitations. It's one thing to understand these principles intellectually, and quite another to live them consistently when you're dealing with work stress, relationship challenges, financial pressures, and all the other complexities of human existence. The key is recognizing that quantum manifestation isn't something you do in addition to your regular life. It's a way of approaching everything you're already doing. Every interaction, every decision, every moment of attention is an opportunity to practice alignment with your desired outcomes, or to drift into patterns that don't serve your growth. This might mean approaching your current job differently even if it's not the work you ultimately want to be doing. Instead of just going through the emotions or counting the days until you can leave, you could practice bringing the same qualities to your current work that you want to experience in your ideal career. If you want work that feels creative and meaningful, you could look for ways to bring creativity and meaning to whatever tasks you're already responsible for. This isn't about pretending to be satisfied with situations that genuinely don't serve you, or avoiding necessary changes in your circumstances. It's about recognizing that the consciousness you bring to any situation influences what becomes possible within that situation and what opportunities arise to move beyond it. When you practice embodying the qualities you want to experience, before your external circumstances reflect those qualities, you're working with the quantum principle that consciousness influences reality rather than simply responding to it. You're not waiting for better circumstances to become a more creative, loving, abundant person. You're becoming that person now and allowing your circumstances to reorganize themselves around that new identity. This approach transforms every aspect of daily life into manifestation practice. Grocery shopping becomes an opportunity to practice abundant consciousness by appreciating the incredible variety and availability of nourishment. Traffic jams become opportunities to practice patience and presence rather than frustration and resistance. Difficult conversations become chances to practice the kind of authentic communication you want to experience in all your relationships. The more you approach life this way, the more you realize that there's no separation between spiritual practice and practical living. Every moment offers a choice between alignment and misalignment, between expanding into your potential or contracting into limitation, between contributing to the positive evolution of consciousness or reinforcing patterns that keep you and others stuck in repetitive cycles of dissatisfaction. This understanding also reveals why traditional approaches to manifestation often fail to produce lasting results. When people try to use visualization, affirmations, or positive thinking as techniques to get what they want while maintaining the same underlying patterns of consciousness that created their current circumstances, they're working against the quantum principles that actually govern the manifestation process. Real transformation requires what we might call quantum authenticity, a willingness to become genuinely different rather than just trying to think different thoughts or feel different emotions while remaining fundamentally the same person. This kind of authenticity involves honestly acknowledging the patterns and beliefs that aren't serving you, without judgment or resistance, and then allowing them to dissolve naturally as you align more fully with who you're becoming. This process often involves what spiritual traditions have called the dark night of the soul, periods where old patterns are dissolving but new ones haven't yet stabilized. During these times, you might feel uncertain about who you are or what you want. You might experience a sense of meaninglessness or disconnection that can be quite uncomfortable. From a quantum perspective, these experiences aren't signs that something is wrong. They're signs that your consciousness is reorganizing itself at a fundamental level. The identity structures that used to define you are becoming more fluid, creating space for new possibilities to emerge. This can feel destabilizing, but it's actually evidence that the manifestation process is working at the deepest possible level. The key during these transitional periods is to resist the temptation to immediately fill the space with new goals or identities. Instead, you learn to rest in the openness itself, to become comfortable with not knowing exactly who you are or where you're going. This unknowing isn't a problem to solve, it's the creative space where genuine transformation occurs. Many people abort the manifestation process during these periods because the uncertainty feels too uncomfortable. They jump back into old patterns or grab onto new goals prematurely before the deeper reorganization has had time to complete itself. But if you can learn to trust the intelligence of the process and remain open to whatever wants to emerge, you often discover that what comes through exceeds anything you could have planned or imagined. This points to one of the most profound aspects of quantum manifestation, the recognition that you're not just trying to get specific things you want, you're participating in the ongoing evolution of consciousness itself. Every time you choose alignment over resistance, love over fear, expansion over contraction, you're contributing to the positive development of the entire field of human consciousness. Your personal manifestation practice is simultaneously an individual path of growth and a service to the collective evolution of our species. As more people learn to create from quantum coherence rather than classical force, we're developing new capacities for cooperation, creativity, and problem solving that will be essential for addressing the challenges our world faces. This larger context can provide tremendous motivation for continuing your practice, even when results aren't immediately apparent in your personal circumstances. You're not just working for your own benefit, you're helping to pioneer ways of being that could transform how humanity relates to itself and the natural world. From this perspective, every limitation you transcend, every fear you transform, every limiting belief you release is a gift not just to yourself, but to everyone whose life you touch. You're modeling possibilities that might inspire others to explore their own potential. You're contributing to a morphic field of consciousness that makes it easier for others to access similar states of alignment and creativity. This collective dimension of manifestation becomes particularly important when you're working with challenges that seem too big for individual effort alone. Climate change, social inequality, political polarization, and other systemic issues require collective solutions that emerge from a more coherent and cooperative level of human consciousness. But these collective transformations begin with individual transformation. As you learn to manifest from quantum coherence in your personal life, you're developing the same capacities that humanity needs to manifest solutions to our collective challenges. You're learning to work with natural patterns rather than against them, to trust intelligence that operates beyond the limitations of rational planning, to collaborate with life rather than trying to control it. Now let's explore one of the most fascinating aspects of quantum manifestation, the phenomenon of what we might call quantum resonance. In physics, resonance occurs when a system is driven at its natural frequency, causing it to oscillate with much greater amplitude than would be possible with the same amount of energy applied at a different frequency. In quantum manifestation, resonance occurs when your personal frequency aligns so perfectly with your desired outcome that manifestation becomes almost effortless. Instead of struggling to make things happen through force and willpower, you discover that you're vibrating in harmony with the very possibilities you want to experience, and they begin to appear in your life with surprising ease and synchronicity. This kind of resonance isn't something you can force or fake. It emerges naturally when you've done the inner work necessary to release the patterns that were keeping you out of alignment with your desired outcomes. It's like tuning a radio to the exact frequency of the station you want to receive. When you find the precise frequency, The signal comes through clear and strong with minimal effort. The challenge is that most people try to find this resonant frequency through mental effort, rather than through the more subtle process of energetic alignment. They try to think their way into the right state, or force themselves to feel emotions they don't genuinely feel, or visualize outcomes while their unconscious patterns are still broadcasting on a completely different frequency. True quantum resonance emerges from a deeper level of being, from what we might call the soul level rather than the personality level. This is the level where your deepest values, your authentic gifts, and your genuine purpose for being alive intersect with the evolutionary impulse of consciousness itself. When you're operating from this level, manifestation becomes less about getting what you want and more about expressing what you are. The things you desire begin to feel less like external goals you're trying to achieve and more like natural expressions of your essential nature. Work doesn't feel like something you have to do to pay bills, it feels like a way to contribute your unique gifts to the world. Relationships don't feel like sources of validation or security. They feel like opportunities for mutual growth and authentic connection. This shift from wanting to expressing, from achieving to becoming, fundamentally changes the energy of the manifestation process. Instead of the somewhat desperate or effortful quality that often accompanies goal-seeking, there's a sense of natural unfolding, like a flower opening to the sun or a river flowing toward the ocean. People often notice this shift when they talk about their dreams and goals. Instead of sounding like they're trying to convince themselves or others that something is possible, they speak with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that what they're describing is simply a matter of time and natural development. This confidence isn't based on having figured out exactly how everything will work out, but on a deep trust in the intelligence of the manifestation process itself. It's the confidence of a seed that knows it will become a tree, even though it has no conscious understanding of photosynthesis or cellular biology. When you're in this state of quantum resonance, you often find that opportunities and resources appear just when you need them, without you having to struggle or search for them. People show up in your life who can help you in ways you never could have planned. Information and insights arrive through unexpected channels at exactly the right time. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. It's the natural result of being aligned with the quantum field in a way that allows the intelligence of that field to express itself through your individual circumstances. When you're no longer working against the natural flow of possibilities with resistance and limiting beliefs, that flow can organize itself around your authentic desires with remarkable elegance and efficiency. But here's what many people miss about quantum resonance. It's not a permanent state you achieve once and then maintain forever. It's more like a skill you develop through practice, a capacity you can access more and more reliably as you become more sensitive to the subtle signals that indicate when you're in alignment and when you're not. Some days you might wake up feeling perfectly aligned with your desires and purposes, and everything flows with ease. Other days you might feel disconnected or unclear, and it takes more effort to remember who you are and what you're moving toward. This variation is completely normal and doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. The key is learning to work skillfully with both states. When you're in resonance, you ride the wave of natural flow and take inspired action that feels effortless and energizing. When you're out of resonance, you focus on the practices that help you return to alignment, things like meditation, time in nature, creative expression, or whatever helps you reconnect with your essential self. Over time, you become more familiar with your own patterns and rhythms. You learn which activities, relationships, and environments support your alignment, and which ones tend to pull you out of resonance. You develop a toolkit of practices that reliably help you return to coherence when you've drifted into confusion or resistance. This self-knowledge becomes invaluable in the manifestation process because it allows you to work with your natural cycles rather than fighting against them. Instead of trying to maintain the same level of focused intention all the time, you learn when to push forward and when to rest, when to be specific about what you want and when to remain open to unexpected possibilities. You also begin to recognize that periods of apparent disconnection often precede periods of even deeper alignment. Sometimes you have to lose your way temporarily in order to find a path that serves your growth better than the one you were on before. Sometimes confusion is a sign that you're outgrowing old patterns and beliefs, making space for new possibilities to emerge. This understanding helps you approach the inevitable challenges and setbacks of the manifestation process with more patience and wisdom. Instead of seeing difficulties as evidence that you're doing something wrong or that manifestation doesn't work, you recognize them as part of the natural rhythm of growth and transformation. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to develop greater alignment. Every setback becomes information about where your internal coherence might need refinement. Every delay becomes a chance to deepen your trust in the intelligence of the process itself. As we near the completion of our exploration through the quantum nature of manifestation, it becomes clear that we've been describing something much more profound than a technique for getting what you want. We've been exploring a fundamental shift in how consciousness relates to reality, a movement from the illusion of separation to the recognition of interconnection, from the attempt to control outcomes to the practice of dancing with the mystery of existence itself. The quantum approach to manifestation reveals that you're not a separate individual trying to manipulate an external universe to provide for your needs and desires. You're a unique expression of the universe exploring its own infinite potential through the particular lens of your consciousness. Your desires aren't separate from the evolutionary impulse of existence itself. They're how that impulse moves through you toward greater complexity, creativity, and connection. This understanding transforms every aspect of how you approach the creation of positive change in your life. Instead of seeing manifestation as something you do, you begin to experience it as something you are. Instead of working to get the universe to give you what you want, you discover that you're the universe exploring what it wants through the particular perspective of your individual awareness. From this perspective, failure becomes impossible because every experience, whether it matches your preferences or not, contributes to the larger exploration of consciousness that you're participating in. Success becomes less about achieving specific outcomes and more about how fully you express your authentic nature and contribute your unique gifts to the ongoing creation of reality. This doesn't mean that your individual desires and goals become irrelevant, but they're held within a larger context of meaning and purpose that makes them much more fulfilling when they manifest and much less devastating when they don't unfold as expected. When you operate from this quantum understanding, manifestation becomes a collaborative dance between your individual will and the cosmic intelligence that moves through all things. You contribute your clarity, your alignment, your authentic engagement, and the universe contributes its infinite creativity, its perfect timing, and its vast network of interconnected possibilities. The result is a life that feels both deeply personal and transpersonal, both uniquely yours and connected to something far greater than your individual story. Your successes feel like gifts that have emerged from the generosity of existence itself, and your challenges feel like opportunities to develop qualities that serve not just your own growth, but the evolution of consciousness on a planetary scale. This is perhaps the most beautiful aspect of understanding manifestation from a quantum perspective. It reveals that your individual path of growth and fulfillment is simultaneously a contribution to the larger healing and evolution of our world. Every limitation you transcend makes it easier for others to transcend similar limitations. Every expression of your authentic gifts creates new possibilities for others to discover and express their own gifts. Your life becomes both a personal journey of discovery and a service to the collective awakening of human consciousness. The more fully you become who you really are, the more you contribute to a world where everyone can more easily access their own authentic potential. Presence in the trauma bay, but guards were unable to locate anyone matching the description of the mysterious observer. As the medical team continued working to save Jason's life, the ghostly figure became more active, appearing to gesture towards specific areas of Jason's body and seemingly attempting to communicate information about his injuries. Dr. Rodriguez, who was leading the trauma team, reported feeling an inexplicable compulsion to examine Jason's lower back more thoroughly, despite the fact that initial X-rays had not revealed any obvious spinal injuries. Following this intuitive guidance, additional imaging studies revealed a subtle vertebral fracture that could have resulted in permanent paralysis if left untreated. The early detection and treatment of Jason's spinal injury proved to be crucial for his recovery, allowing surgeons to stabilize the fracture before permanent nerve damage occurred. Jason eventually made a full recovery and was discharged from the hospital after 6 weeks of treatment and rehabilitation. When Jason regained consciousness several days after his accident, he immediately asked about his grandfather, Robert Mitchell, whom he claimed had been present during his emergency treatment. Investigation into Jason's family history revealed that his grandfather, Robert Mitchell, had died in a construction accident 3 years earlier. Robert had been a protective and influential figure in Jason's life, serving as a father figure after Jason's parents divorced when he was 12 years old. The family provided photographs that confirmed the identity of the ghostly figure observed in the trauma center as Robert Mitchell, and they expressed no surprise that Robert's spirit had appeared to watch over Jason during his medical crisis. The Mitchell case illustrates a common pattern in emergency department supernatural encounters, where deceased family members appear during critical medical situations to provide protection and guidance for their living relatives. These spiritual interventions often result in improved medical outcomes, as if the deceased individuals are using their continued existence to influence the physical world in ways that benefit their loved ones. The emotional impact of emergency department hauntings on medical staff can be profound, as healthcare workers develop relationships with ghostly figures who regularly appear during traumatic cases. Dr. Rodriguez reports that he has come to rely on supernatural guidance during the most challenging emergency situations, and has learned to recognize the presence of specific spirits who seem to specialize in particular types of medical crises. This ongoing collaboration between living medical professionals and deceased helpers represents a unique form of interdimensional teamwork that enhances the quality of the emergency medical care. The intensive care unit environment presents another category of hospital hauntings, characterized by extended supernatural encounters that develop over days or weeks as patients struggle between life and death. The prolonged nature of ICU stays creates opportunities for complex relationships to develop between patients, families, medical staff, and spiritual entities who may be drawn to these liminal spaces where the boundary between life and death becomes particularly thin. Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York has maintained detailed documentation of ICU supernatural encounters for over 20 years, compiling case studies that demonstrate the therapeutic value of ghostly visitations for both patients and families dealing with critical illness. The hospital's ICU spirits appear to serve multiple functions, including providing emotional support, offering medical guidance, and helping families prepare for difficult decisions about end-of-life care. Dr. Sarah Thompson, who has served as director of the medical ICU at Mount Sinai for 8 years, notes that supernatural encounters in the intensive care setting often involve deceased patients who had previous stays in the same unit and appear to be returning to help current patients navigate similar medical challenges. These returning spirits demonstrate detailed knowledge of ICU procedures, equipment, and protocols that allows them to provide practical guidance to confused or frightened patients who are experiencing intensive medical treatment for the first time. The case of Maria Gonzalez, a 58-year-old diabetes patient who spent 6 weeks in the Mount Sinai ICU following complications from kidney surgery, illustrates the complex support systems that can develop between living patients and deceased spirits. Maria's extended ICU stay was marked by multiple setbacks, including infections, organ dysfunction, and periods of delirium that left her feeling confused and frightened about her condition and prognosis. During her second week in the